Chapter 160. The grass by the lake grew long, the leaves were green, and the smell of spring permeated the thin mist of the morning. Lu Qing breathed in the refreshing air and jogged to the place where he usually trained while carrying the items he would bring to the martial arts club later to complete the preliminary warm-up. The recovery of his right arm made him feel light and refreshed. He couldn't wait to perform the skills of Thunder Roar Zen that he had comprehended. When he arrived at the destination, Geezer Sure was already waiting there. Seeing his running posture, he was slightly surprised and asked, "You're all healed?" "Yes. Maybe it's because of the awakening of the power of frost, which stimulated my body and made it stronger," Lu Qing explained with a smile. Geezer Sure clicked his tongue and said, "You're really good at not playing by the rules. I was going to see your power of frost today and figure out its characteristics so that I can perfect what I'm going to teach you after your arm recovers. I didn't expect you to be fine today. Forget it. You still have Thunder Roar Zen to practice. You're not in a hurry. Show me your power of frost first." "Yes, master." Lu Qing put the bag next to the tree and then got into a good posture to operate the cold current in his body. Bam! He shook his left arm and slapped out with his palm, imprinting it on the tree. During this process, Geezer Sure's eyes were suddenly covered with a layer of ice blue and almost white, as if they had turned into a crystal-clear ice soul. They quietly reflected everything around them. Although they couldn't see through clothes or flesh, they clearly outlined the tracks of things that affected each other and showed the details contained in them. Seeing the white frost palm print disappear in a flash after Lu Qing withdrew his hand, Geezer Sure nodded slightly and said, "Okay, I have a general understanding of it. I'll teach you tomorrow after thinking about it. You can start other exercises." Lu Qing said, "Okay," but he didn't rush to practice Thunder Roar Zen. Instead, he stood still step by step, practiced the set, quenched his body, and practiced 24 blizzard strikes as usual. His right arm had just recovered, so it was still in a fragile stage. If he didn't move it, warm up, and adapt to the feeling of tempering, he would only hurt it again if he directly used Thunder Roar Zen. And if he hurt the same part of his arm repeatedly, it would easily become a habitual injury, which would be difficult to completely heal. Therefore, Geezer Sure's initial assessment of his injury was that it would take about 2 weeks for him to return to normal. 5 days of recuperation for his injury to heal, followed by more than a week of restorative training. Only then would he be able to compete in the challenge tournament again without any hidden dangers. Pa! Pa! The crisp sound of explosions in the air continued. Lu Qing performed the 24 blizzard strikes over and over again. Finally, he felt that his right arm belonged to him again. Every muscle adjustment and every detail of exerting force were all under his control. After finishing the rest of the training, Lu Qing took a short rest. He closed his eyes and stood still. First, he recalled the skills of Thunder Roar Zen, and then visualized the scene of thunder clouds and thunderbolts. In the rumbling sound, he controlled his body. According to the passive experience last time, he tightened the muscles of his hands, forearms, upper arms, shoulders, and back one by one, as if he was compressing them. Then he exerted force under his feet and let the violent rebound pass through his ankle joint, knee joint, and corresponding muscles to his waist and hip. Then he pushed his left arm purely through the rotation of his spine to punch out. When he was close to the target in the void, Lu Qing's tightened muscles all opened up. Like the explosion of a cannonball, the air was torn apart, and a low sound was heard. Bang! After the punch, Lu Qing's body trembled, but he didn't feel any obvious vibration. His attempt at Thunder Roar Zen failed. Not tight enough, not compressed enough, and the rhythm is wrong. Lu Qing didn't feel annoyed. Instead, he felt that it was natural. Even if he found the trick in the threshold, it was not easy to master a martial art. Trial and error were inevitable. Bang! 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 He continuously punched with his left and right hands. He failed again and again, and tried again and again. With his physical strength, sweat gradually appeared on his forehead and back. If it weren't for the Jin Dan, he would have to wait until the next day to practice again. But these failures were not completely useless. They allowed him to eliminate his mistakes little by little, and he got new feedback to confirm his adjusted ideas. He felt that he had stepped on the threshold. After 4 or 5 days of training, Lu Qing tightened his muscles, put his feet inward, and shook out his right arm with the spring of his tailbone and the strength of his back. He clenched his fist and punched down. Boom! In his mind, lightning clouds were rolling and thunder was roaring. Together with the opening of the tightened muscles of his hands, forearms, upper arms, and shoulders, etc. Bang! The air in front of Lu Cheng's fist seemed to be hit by a bomb, and there were invisible ripples spreading out in circles. Phew. Okay. Lu Cheng exhaled a long breath and felt some vibration in the opposite direction. Geezer sure had been watching from the side, and occasionally gave Lu Cheng some pointers, which made Lu Cheng feel enlightened. At this moment, he said with a grumpy smile, "Only you can practice in such an abnormal way. But don't go too far. Your right arm is still weak. Well, you've got the beginner of Thunder Roar Zen. Practice a little more and you'll be able to fight." After that, he walked away slowly with his hands behind his back. When he reached the long bridge, he cursed, "This bastard is not human. That thing will be exhausted by him sooner or later." Lu Qing didn't notice his master's sarcasm behind his back. He devoted himself to practicing Thunder Roar Zen, so that he could turn that feeling into instinct as soon as possible. Bang! 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 He punched with his left hand and hammered with his right hand, creating continuous vibrations, like a horrible human-shaped beast. After a long time, he finally stopped. He pinched his right arm and decided to stop. He took out a towel from the bag and wiped his sweat. Then he started the last training, which was to improve his endurance. After hiding the bag, he started to run along the lakeside, pushing himself to the limit. While running, he suddenly saw a familiar figure. Li Mao was standing by the lakeside, practicing his stance with his eyes closed. "Senior brother Li?" Lu Qing approached curiously and shouted. Li Mao opened his eyes and laughed heartily. "Cheng, we meet again. It's because you rarely practice in the morning." Lu Qing joked. Li Mao smiled and said, "I don't have your abnormal stamina. 4 hours of special training has taken a toll on my body. If I practice in the morning again, I'll get tired and hurt sooner or later. But after yesterday's battle, I feel that I've vented a lot of things in my heart. It's rare for me to experience peace and harmony. So I want to try to practice still stance and see if I can catch the inspiration and succeed in concealment of spirit and qi." "Good." Lu Qing praised and encouraged him. "There's hope." Li Mao nodded and smiled. "Actually, I met senior martial brother Sun Jian just now." "He also started to practice in the morning?" Lu Qing asked in surprise. "Sun Jian doesn't seem like such a person. He's really just playing with martial arts." "No, senior brother Sun Jian is studying and memorizing books. He said he wants to go back to Huahai with senior sister Lin after graduation and work there." Li Mao explained. "So that's why." Lu Qing suddenly understood and then waved his fist. "Then let's do our best together." "Do your best." Li Mao also waved his fist. When he turned around and continued to run, Lu Qing suddenly recalled the scene of the celebration dinner last night. Li Mao held a beer glass and looked around with slightly red eyes. "I'm not good at saying emotional words. During this time, I owe you all a thank you. Well, now I'll use the lyrics of an old song to express my thoughts. A sentence, a lifetime of love, a glass of wine." After singing this sentence, he finished the beer in his hand in one gulp, 3 glasses in a row. Tiantong Taoist Temple was located at Mount Shaoheng in the western suburbs of Songcheng. The environment was quiet and secluded, and martial arts were passed down through generations. It was spring and many tourists came for a walk on the weekends, which added a lot of popularity to the ordinary Taoist temple. However, it didn't detract from the quiet and cold atmosphere of the place. "I'm going to the side yard." You can walk around by yourself. Yenjika looked around cutely and reminded Lu Qing, let's talk on QQ. Okay. Lu Qing shook the phone in his hand and watched the girl enter the side yard. Then he put his hands in his pockets and began to stroll around leisurely, breathing in the fresh air that cleared the mind and the smell of incense. After slowly admiring the Taoist statues in the front and side halls, he stepped into the main hall and saw the statues of the three pristine ones standing in front of him. Heavenly Lord Yuancher stood in the center with a crown on his head, looking majestic and solemn. Heavenly Lord Dao De stood on the left with white hair and a natural look. Heavenly Lord Lingbao stood on the right with an elegant crown and a fierce aura. They looked down from high above. Together with the slightly spacious main hall, they set off a deep and solemn feeling that made the visitors couldn't help but bow. Very imposing. Lu Qing sighed and decided that since he was here, he might as well burn some incense. He turned around, took out his wallet, and bought 3 incense sticks. Then he walked to the stove and bowed to Heavenly Lord Yuancher, silently reciting the words, family is safe, love is long, and martial arts is successful. After doing all this, he put the 3 incense sticks into the stove and bowed again. After leaving the main hall, he walked to the backyard with the mentality of a tourist. Just as he turned the corner, he saw a group of people gathered there and heard the continuous sound of punches and kicks. A fight? Lu Cheng's curiosity was piqued. He walked through the crowd like a fish and came to the front. He saw 2 figures fighting fiercely in the small square paved with bluestone. A middle-aged Taoist was the referee. Just as he stood still, he saw a young man in a black martial arts suit lower his waist and lower his hips, wriggling the muscles on his back, and using his right arm as a spear, he stabbed forward. This seemingly ordinary attack made Lu Qing feel like his opponent was in an ancient battlefield, holding a spear and sprinting on a horse. Nice! He couldn't help but shout. His opponent's back muscles seemed to be in a perfect state. He could be considered a rare expert among professional 9th pin fighters. Bam! After one attack, the young Taoist opposite the man in a black martial arts suit broke his stance. I lost. The young Taoist didn't struggle and shook his head with a bitter smile. The man in a black martial arts suit didn't seem to be satisfied. He looked around and said, who else wants to fight with me? Now that the Taoist is the referee, let's do it. Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. He was eager to have a try. His Thunder Roar Zen had finally started. He really wanted to try out actual combat. As for his weak right arm, he could use it to defend. At this time, the man in a black martial arts suit with thick eyebrows and big eyes shouted again, who else wants to fight? Lu Qing exhaled and walked out of the crowd. He took off his clothes and said with a smile, me. Chapter 161. Seeing Lu Qing coming out, the man in black martial arts suit, who was worried about not having an opponent, did not hide his joy. He pointed in front of him and said politely, please. It was the warm spring season. After taking off his thin coat, Lu Qing was left with only a woolen shirt inside. It was not as loose as his training suit and was somewhat restrained. However, he did not care too much about it. After all, it was just a friendly match, not a challenge tournament where the goal was to win. This was more like the daily sparring in the special training. The only difference was that there was a referee, so he could practice his new martial arts without worry. After reading so much news, he knew a lot of tricks. He carefully took out his phone and wallet from his coat and stuffed them into the pockets of his casual pants. Then he handed the clothes to the little Taoist beside him. Don't worry. They are all Taoists of Tiantong Taoist Temple. They won't take your phone and wallet. You can run away, but the temple won't. The man in black martial arts suit frowned. You will affect your leg movements. It's okay. It's just a competition. Lu Qing moved his body and said with a smile. If it was a challenge tournament, I wouldn't dare to fight. After all, my right arm is temporarily weak and can only be used as a support. Who would use one arm to fight a strong fighter of professional 9th pin? Besides, the surrounding audience was sparse. It seemed that they didn't know him or his opponent. If he won, there would be no sense of achievement. If he lost, it would be even less important. The man in black martial arts suit stopped persuading him. He observed Lu Cheng's movements and asked, "Friend, what's your rank? Amateur or professional?" Only by knowing the opponent's level could he decide how much strength he could exert. A competition like this was meaningless after 2 or 3 moves. Lu Cheng didn't want to play dumb. He said frankly, "Professional 9th pin." Probably, the man in black martial arts suit heard this and became excited. Good. I didn't expect him to be a master. Now I can fight to my heart's content. Well, judging from his appearance, his chi and blood are not strong enough to become fierce. He should have just entered professional 9th pin. After moving his body, Lu Cheng stood in front of the man in black martial arts suit. They were about 4 meters apart. The middle-aged Taoist laughed. He didn't wave his hand like an official referee. He just shouted casually, "Begin." Lu Cheng was about to shift his center of gravity and flash to the side of the man in black martial arts suit so that he could perform the Thunder Roar Zen in the best way. However, he suddenly saw his opponent bend his legs and shake his body. He leaped forward as if he was riding a 1,000-mile horse. Taking advantage of the horse's momentum, he fiercely shook his right arm and stabbed at Lu Cheng. His leap was as quick as a clap of thunder, so fast that it was like a galloping horse. His punch carried the might and terror of a high-speed collision. Even with Lu Cheng's current fighting mentality, he couldn't help but feel that his opponent was invincible and unstoppable. "Good," he muttered to himself. He calmly gave up on the idea of dodging in a hurry. Suddenly, he pushed his feet inward and lowered his waist into a sitting position. Paw! Tiny cracks appeared on the bluestone ground. The violent force was channeled to Lu Cheng's left arm through his legs and back, allowing him to throw out a vigorous blast punch. At the same time, he skillfully tightened the muscles in his hands, forearms, upper arms, and shoulders. Thunder Roar Zen, attack against attack, breaking hard with hard. When the 2 fists just collided, the thundercloud in Lu Cheng's mind suddenly struck down a bolt of lightning, bursting out with a deafening thunder. Boom! Lu Cheng's tight muscles all opened up, giving off an explosive force in an instant. The first strike. Bang! His and the man in black martial arts suit's fists seemed to be frozen in the air for a moment. There seemed to be circles of ripples spreading out around them. Crack! The man in black martial arts suit took a step back and crushed a bluestone. He only felt that his head was buzzing and his chi and blood were tumbling. His body felt as if it was hit by an iron hammer. There was no part of his body that didn't feel uncomfortable. Tremor force? He has mastered tremor force? Fortunately, I used all my strength in the first strike and offset a lot of it. Otherwise, the effect wouldn't be so ordinary. While the man in black martial arts suit was in shock, Lu Cheng also took a step back. He was forced to take a step back by his opponent's tremendous force like a horse charging at him. The bluestone ground where he landed had a spider web of cracks. His strength is indeed above mine. The thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and pounced on him fiercely again with the help of the rebound force. Taking advantage of his opponent's slight delay due to the shock, he swung his left arm again and tightened his muscles. The second strike of Thunder Roar Zen, unforgiving. Seeing this, the man in black martial arts suit endured the discomfort and took a deep breath. He stamped his feet and his temples suddenly bulged. It seemed that there was a flame in his body that broke out automatically and disappeared in the opposite direction. With this push, he threw out his right fist with a snap. Bang! The 2 fists collided. Lu Cheng's thunder roar sounded again, like an interrogation. The man in black martial arts suit shook his body, churned his chi and blood, and shook his muscles, fascias and joints. Again. Lu Cheng shouted secretly. He moved his right arm and beat the drum as if he was practicing in the morning. Another strike of Thunder Roar Zen. The man in black martial arts suit knew that this kind of vibration force required constant control of the muscles in his body, which consumed a lot of physical strength. It was impossible to beat it continuously. Therefore, he didn't panic. He clenched his teeth and visualized a giant frog swallowing and spitting at the moon. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. His internal organs seemed to be wriggling and making a loud sound to offset the vibration of his body. He raised his left arm in time to block Lu Cheng's right fist. Boom! His mind was buzzing as if there was thunder exploding. His qi and blood were churning so much that he wanted to vomit. However, he firmly held on to one idea in his heart and persevered. His opponent should have reached his limit, right? Good. Lu Cheng praised secretly and swung out his left arm again. The fourth strike of thunder roar zen. The man in black martial arts suit showed a rare look of astonishment. He could only summon his remaining strength to resist the vibration with the wriggling of his internal organs, muscles and fascias. He forced himself to raise his right arm. Bang! The right arm of the man in black martial arts suit was forcibly opened. His internal organs were all shaken and he lost control of his qi and blood. His muscles and joints were trembling but he could barely exert strength. Still not falling? Lu Cheng's expression was solemn. He tightened his right arm and threw another seabed burst punch at his opponent's lower abdomen. The fifth strike of thunder roar zen. Let's see how many times you can block. Bang! The man in black martial arts suit lowered his waist and stretched out his arms to block the blow. However, the sudden explosion made him feel like he was hit by a bomb. His whole body was shaken up and he tasted something sweet in his throat. He was almost injured because of the churning of his qi and blood. He felt as if his body was a large bell that had been struck 5 times with a mallet. His muscles, fascia, joints, blood, bone marrow, and internal organs were all shaking with a clanging sound. His footsteps became unsteady as he staggered backwards, almost falling down. Lu Cheng stopped. He felt that the 5 consecutive strikes of thunder roar zen were so satisfying that they could be described as unreasonable. Not convinced? Then let's do it again. Of course, it was only him. If it were another professional martial artist, even if his qi and blood were at the peak, he could only hit 3 or 4 times at most. He felt the expansion, contraction and rotation of the Jin Dan in his body. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you." The man in black martial arts suit steadied himself and wanted to say something. However, he couldn't open his mouth because of the churning of his qi and blood. Lu Cheng smiled and didn't say anything. He took back his coat and walked out of the crowd. He continued to wander around Tiantong Taoist Temple. After 10 minutes, he received a message from Yan Jika. The girl said with an evil smile, "I'm coming out. Come and pick me up." Okay. Lu Cheng was in a good mood. He put his phone back in his pocket and turned back to the entrance of the side yard. When he arrived at the gate of the front hall, he happened to see Yan Jika walking out of the side yard with a fashionable young man beside her. Her relative? Cool, let's go hiking, okay? The scenery here is pretty good. Xia Tianke invited her ingratiatingly. Yan Jika looked around and didn't answer. Suddenly, her eyes lit up when she saw Lu Cheng at the gate of the front hall. She smiled and said, "My boyfriend is here. You can find someone else to climb the mountain." She didn't wait for a response. She waved goodbye and trotted to Lu Cheng with light steps. Lu Cheng walked up and held the girl's delicate hand. He asked in a low voice, "Who is that?" Yan Jika didn't turn around. She said pitifully, "A child of a family friend of mine. When I was young, I called him brother. This time, his family came with my uncle. It's super embarrassing." A blind date?" Lu Cheng asked with mixed feelings. "Not really. We just happened to meet. Hey, he confessed to me 2 years ago. So it's a little awkward to see him. Hey, why can't we be good friends?" Yan Jika sighed. Then she rolled her eyes and looked at Lu Cheng mischievously. Cheng, are you jealous? No. Lu Cheng blushed and hurriedly denied. Yen Jika chuckled and seemed to be very happy. She said with shallow dimples, I'm still young. My parents don't want me to date in college. There won't be any blind dates in the next few years. When we get there, I'll take you back directly. She stopped abruptly and looked to the side with a slight blush. Boyfriend. Xia Tianke stared blankly at the back of Yen Jika and Lu Qing walking hand in hand to the front hall. He felt a sense of loss, bitterness, and unwillingness. The childhood sweetheart that she had watched grow up was snatched away just like that. Ku, this little girl, has a boyfriend. At this moment, a low voice woke him up. He turned his head to look and found that his father was standing behind him at some point in time. He muttered blankly, Dad. Xie Qingjin was slender and elegant. He chuckled and said, I came out to burn incense and happened to see you. Tianke, why are you so depressed? Is this all that a man can do? So what if Ku has a boyfriend? You have to show her your strengths and work hard to make yourself more outstanding. Sooner or later, she will compare you to her. How many boyfriends in college can last until the end? Xia Tianke nodded thoughtfully. When he was about to express his determination, he suddenly saw Xia Tianshu in a black martial arts suit coming back. His brother was a typical martial arts fanatic. After arriving at Tiantong Taoist Temple, he did not do anything else but went straight to the Taoist priest. However, he could not catch up with his brother's martial arts level. What's wrong? Xia Tianshu saw his brother's expression and asked casually. Xia Tianke sighed and pointed to the front hall door. He said in a low voice, Ku has a boyfriend. Boyfriend? Xia Tianshu looked over and was stunned. He blurted out, him? I just had a match with him. Xie Qingjin and Xia Tianke were stunned. They looked at Xia Tianshu blankly, waiting for him to continue. Xia Tianshu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, I lost. Chapter 162. Lost? After a short silence, Xia Tianke asked subconsciously, Brother, how much strength did you use? He knew that when his elder brother was sparring with others, he would use different forces according to the opponent's strength. There were many examples of him failing miserably because of this. Controlling one's own strength and suppressing one's own level could be more troublesome than dealing with the enemy. Full strength. Xia Tianshu showed a bitter smile. He is of professional ninth pin. How could I dare to be careless? His brother who used his full strength lost to Ku's boyfriend? And he still looked so young. Xia Tianke suddenly felt desperate. It seemed that he could only watch Ku and her boyfriend go further and further away. How did you lose? Xie Qingjin looked at his eldest son and asked. He was more concerned about this question. Xia Tianshu sighed. I was hit by 5 tremor punches in a row. I didn't even have a chance to fight back. 5 tremor punches? Xia Tianke was shocked and interrupted in astonishment. He wasn't an ordinary martial artist with poor knowledge, and he often experienced the power of the meteor force. Naturally, he knew that an expert at the peak of the body refinement realm could only throw out 4 tremor punches at most, and there was no way they could truly suppress his own brother. 5 tremor punches in a row? What kind of inhuman was this? Yes, I feel that he still has some strength left. It won't be a problem to hit him 2 or 3 more times. Speaking of this, Xia Tianshu couldn't help but feel depressed. He almost lost the confidence to face Lu Qing again. Xie Qingjin, who had been listening quietly at the side, asked thoughtfully. Meteor force? No, meteor force is faster than his tremor punch. It has both momentum and tremor force. But his tremor punch is more ingenious. I feel that there is still a lot of room for improvement. Xia Tianshu analyzed seriously. Xie Qingjin said, what do you think the result will be between him and Lin Ke? Xia Tianshu thought carefully and said, his physical fitness hasn't reached the peak of the body refining realm yet, If he uses the tremor punch and the meteor force to fight, he won't be able to withstand the shock of 3 superimposed moves. Not to mention that Lin Ke is close to the Dan stage. Xie Qingjin didn't say more. He turned to Xie Tianke and said with a smile, Tianke, if you want to beat him, you have to put in some hard work. However, even if I work hard, I won't be able to catch up to him. Xie Tianke opened his mouth, but he couldn't make up his mind. There was nothing more depressing and despairing than having one's love rival far surpass oneself. Xie Qingjin put his hands behind his back and said, Tian Shu, accompany me to the 3 Pristines Hall to burn some incense. Xie Tianshu nodded and followed beside his father. They walked forward slowly until they were far away from Xie Tianke. He turned back to look at his brother, who was in a daze, and asked worriedly, Dad, are we pushing Tianke too hard? Ruthless? Xie Qingjin laughed. If even this kind of thing can't make him work harder, it can only mean that he's just a lustful guy. Then I don't have to worry that he won't be able to recover from the setback. If he really takes this opportunity to push himself to the limit and catch up with other girls, it's a good thing for him. Even if Yan Jika is gone, there are still other good girls. Time is like a knife. Sooner or later, his feelings will fade away. Xie Tianshu glanced at his father and vaguely heard a sigh in his voice. Did his father also encounter a similar situation in the past? Did he also have a girl he couldn't get? He was not interested in love and romance, so he forgot about it in the blink of an eye. Because of the previous failure, he was more motivated to work harder. Being defeated is not terrible. What is terrible is losing the confidence to catch up. Fortunately, I still have this confidence. Sooner or later, I will face him again. When Yan Jika looked to the side with a slight blush, her words just now echoed in Lu Cheng's ears. Does she mean that she will take me back to meet her parents directly after I graduate? Meet her parents. Lu Cheng was excited and scared at the same time. He was afraid that Yan Jika's family would not like him. According to the girl's words, he was sure that she was born in a martial arts family. Her family must be very knowledgeable. A little professional ninth pin fighter would not be accepted by them. Even those who had just entered the Dan stage with no potential would not be accepted by them. Phew. Lu Qing suddenly felt a sense of crisis and urgency. He wanted to temper his body to the peak as soon as possible. He wanted to step into the Dan stage and have at least the strength of professional 7th pin by the time he graduated. Only in this way could he successfully win the girl's heart. After his fortuitous encounter with the Jin Dan, his martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds. It wasn't that he hadn't dreamed of rising 1 pin in a year, becoming a mighty one with physical invulnerability, or obtaining the 5 major titles. However, they were just dreams. After all, they were still far from his current level. But at this moment, he had a clear goal for the first time and a clearer desire. I want to improve my body to the peak of the body refining stage in half a year. I want to take advantage of opportunities such as preliminaries and university martial arts competitions to fight strong opponents and gain experience. I want to step into the Dan stage in 1 or 2 years. I want to be famous in the university martial arts circle and lay the best foundation for entering the professional martial arts competition in the future. I want to have at least the strength of professional 7th pin by the time I graduate. With a goal in mind, Lu Qing suddenly felt the road ahead was much clearer and more motivated. 4 years in college was not a short time, but it was also not a long time. He had to make good use of it. Cheng, what are you thinking about? Yan Jika stretched out her white and slender fingers and playfully waved them in front of his eyes. With a goal in mind, Lu Qing couldn't help but say, I'm thinking, if I go with you to see your parents-in-law, who are your parents-in-law? Yan Jika subconsciously shook off Lu Cheng's hand and blurted out shyly and angrily. Lu Cheng smiled and didn't explain. When the time comes, I want to grow up to be a reliable man whom they like and are willing to entrust their daughters to me. So, I just set a goal. I want to be a professional 7th pin by the time I graduate. Yan Jika, who was a little shy and angry, suddenly froze. Her eyes seemed to be shining. She stretched out her soft hand and held Lu Cheng's hand again. She looked down and said, "Don't push yourself too hard. Too much pressure will only hinder your progress. Take it slow and steady step by step. Then you'll be faster." The girl pursed her lips and blushed. She continued, "I'll also work hard. After graduation, I'll strive to be financially independent as soon as possible. Only in this way can I maintain my integrity and not be dominated by their opinions. I can only use them as a reference." Yenjika's words made Lu Qing feel that she was more mature than he was. And her willingness to work hard for their future surprised him even more. "Let's work hard together." Lu Qing held the girl's hand tightly. At this time, they had arrived at the Three Pristines Hall. Yenjika smiled and said, "Then I'll go burn some incense." Looking at the girl's graceful figure shuttling through the hall and worshipping in front of the heavenly primogenitor, Lu Qing felt warm in his heart and smiled gently. "By the way, will that boy tell your family about us?" When Yenjika came back to him, Lu Qing suddenly felt worried. "I'm still very weak and haven't grown up yet." Yenjika looked up and said, "He's not a person who likes to gossip. He still has some integrity. I'll ask my brother to remind him. I won't do it myself, in case he thinks I'm guilty. The more indifferent I appear, the less likely he will say. It seems that he's a good person." Lu Qing asked deliberately. How could he not know about this love rival who often met his girlfriend? He's not that bad. He's just a little lazy. In this aspect, his brother is much better than him. He's a real martial arts fanatic and is especially devoted to martial arts. Everywhere he goes, he will definitely find someone to practice with. He's also very strong, maybe just a little bit weaker than my brother. When I was young, I especially admired them both." Yenjika answered casually. Lu Cheng was a little jealous. "What about now?" "Now?" Yenjika suddenly felt something was wrong. Her eyebrows curved and she said with a smile, "Cheng, I just found out today that you're very jealous." Cough. Lu Cheng blushed again. He imitated Yenjika and looked to the side. "Maybe it's because I care too much. I won't like someone just because he's good at martial arts and has potential." Yenjika hummed. Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. He asked in a low voice, "Then why do you like me?" Yenjika pulled a long face and said, "Because you're stupid." After saying that, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her voice was thin and clear. Lu Cheng also laughed for a while. His little jealousy disappeared. Only now did he wake up and said thoughtfully, "That guy likes to practice with others? Then I should have just had a fight with him." "What?" Yenjika didn't understand at first. She blinked and asked, "Didn't I just learn Thunder Roar Zen? I was just a little excited, so I had a fight with him." Lu Cheng explained. He had already told his girlfriend that his arm was healed and he had learned Thunder Roar Zen. He also took the opportunity to tell her that Coach Shi was testing him. Once he passed, he would be an official disciple. "Your hand." Yenjika looked at Lu Cheng from head to toe. She was worried. Lu Cheng hurriedly said, "Don't worry. I was careful. I used my left hand to beat him until he could only parry. Then I used my right hand." Hearing his words, Yenjika immediately understood that her boyfriend had won. She was very surprised and proud. "How many times did you hit him with Thunder Roar Zen?" 5. Lu Cheng smiled and made a hand gesture. When Lu Cheng went back to the dormitory and sat in front of the computer, he seemed to still smell the girl's sweet fragrance at the tip of his nose. He hummed a light song and opened the mailbox to check the information sent by Shi. The information of his opponent in next week's preliminaries. Lu Cheng couldn't help but say to himself, "Kind of interesting." This time his opponent was called Mingwei Martial Arts School, also known as One-Man Team. Their leading fighter was called Peng Qingguang. He was 24 years old and stepped into professional ninth pin 3 years ago. It was the age when one was full of vigor and vitality and had the best physical quality. It could be said that he had no shortcomings in any aspect. According to the information, if he was ranked in the top 10 of Songqing professional ninth pin, he would definitely be one of them. In addition to him, Mingwei Martial Arts School only had one amateur first pin and several amateur second pin fighters. It was a real small martial arts school. They won 2 out of 3 matches and lost 1 match because of Peng Qingguang. When they were fighting against Azure Dragon Squad, Peng Qingguang defeated 2 professional ninth pin fighters in a row. If the rest of them had been a little bit stronger, they would have won the match. This was the origin of the name one-man team. Lin K will just resume training next week. I'm the only one who can fight. Lu Qing thought. He remembered that when he was facing Mingwei Martial Arts School, he was the only professional ninth pin fighter in Songqing University Martial Arts Club. From another point of view, it was barely a one-man team. They were both one-man team. Who was stronger? As a martial artist, how could he not have the heart to compare? Lu Qing suddenly looked forward to this match. Chapter 163. While Lu Qing was watching Peng Qingguang's match video, Yan Zhika sent him a message. Qing, are you looking at the information? Yeah. Lu Qing replied with a snickering emoji. Me too. Yan Zhika replied with a snickering emoji. There was no need for superfluous words. In this short conversation, Lu Qing felt a kind of tacit understanding and a faint warmth that made him reminisce about it. His QQ chat window and the match video window were on one side of the screen, as if they had been adjusted long ago. At this moment, his fingers were moving quickly and he sent a sitting and listening emoji. Coach Yan, what do you think of Peng Qingguang? Yan Zhika used her favorite emoji of crossing her hands and supporting her chin and said, Peng Qingguang is at the peak of the body refining stage. His body hasn't deteriorated, and his qi and blood haven't declined. He has no shortcomings in strength, speed, skills, and experience. He is calm enough, mature enough, and brave enough to seize the opportunity and take risks. Moreover, his punches and kicks are beginning to show some signs of withdrawing. He may only have one problem, which is that the martial arts he inherited are too common. Yeah, although Jiuyang Punch and Jiuyang Godly Punch only differ by one word, their essence is completely different. Thinking of this, Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Mingwei Martial Arts School was indeed too small and too common. This could be seen from the fact that there were many martial arts schools with this name. Lu Qing remembered that there was one in Shushan. Peng Qingguang was an orphan adopted by the old master of Mingwei Martial Arts School. They called each other master and disciple. After the old master was seriously injured in a challenge tournament and died at an early age, Peng Qingguang carried the heavy burden of the martial arts school on his tender shoulders as a 16-year-old boy. Step by step, he reached where he was today. Relying only on Jiuyang Punch and the beginner's still stance he bought, he became a powerful body refining stage master in Songqing. In these years, many martial arts schools and martial arts families valued him. Some wanted to take him as a disciple, and some wanted to invite him to join them. However, he rejected all of them. Many people thought that he was the next Liang Yifan. He was waiting for the right time to seize an opportunity and become a dragon. Lu Qing laughed at the imitation of Jiuyang Punch, but he wouldn't underestimate Peng Qingguang. While watching Peng Qingguang's match video, he discussed various details with Yan Zhika. When he was about to fall asleep, he finally confirmed one thing. Apart from Wei Xingtian, a dance stage master, Peng Qingguang was probably the strongest opponent he had ever encountered. And this time, there was no Lin K to share the burden. The next morning, before dawn, Lu Qing had already arrived at his usual spot beside Weishui Lake. Geezer Shi appeared 5 minutes later than him. As usual, he was humming an unpleasant and off-key Chinese opera. Have you seen the information? He chuckled. Yes, I have. Lu Qing answered honestly. Do you have the confidence to defeat Peng Qingguang? Geezer Shi asked leisurely. Although Lu Qing was looking forward to this match and had the desire to fight, he was not blindly arrogant. He thought for a while and said, if Peng Qingguang can continuously resist Thunder Roar Zen, then I have the confidence to defeat him. Obviously, Peng Qingguang was not that stupid. With his experience and physical quality, he might not be obviously stiff after being hit by Thunder Roar Zen. Besides, he had encountered similar martial arts in the past, so he might be able to forcibly stop the vibration once or twice. Lu Cheng's physical quality was still inferior to his brother-in-law's. In this kind of martial arts that relied on tight muscles to burst out instantly instead of the rebound of legs and feet to push the whole body forward, the gap was quite obvious. "Hey, you didn't say anything," Gizershur said grumpily. Then he took out 2 neatly folded papers and handed them to Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng took them and unfolded them. He found that they were actually 2 visualization diagrams. This was a necessary thing to practice advanced martial arts. The entry-level visualization of the congealing water and lightning fire stance, as well as the brutal blizzard and mega avalanche, were relatively easy. Just by relying on his usual knowledge and Gizershur's explanations, he was able to quickly outline and form a prototype. However, it was absolutely impossible to master the more advanced visualization methods. One had to have a visualization diagram or understand the corresponding nature. Other than that, there was no other way. Of the 2 diagrams in Lu Cheng's hands, one was a plain covered with ice and snow, drawn in a freehand style. But when he saw it, he felt that it was bone-chilling and boundless. The other one was a scene of a frozen river, drawn with fine brushstrokes. Even the lines of the waves condensing into ice were presented one by one, which made people feel the surging force and the more terrifying freezing intent contained in it. For a moment, Lu Cheng felt that his hands were cold, as if he had directly touched 1,000-year-old ice. He almost shook his arms and threw the visualization diagram away. Cough. As Gizershur coughed, the illusion disappeared and the bone-chilling cold disappeared. First, look at the freezing sky and earth diagram and grasp the essence and charm. Remember which muscles, fascia, and internal organs it affects in the still stance visualization, and remember what changes they have. Then, under the condition that you don't do visualization, you repeatedly grasp them. When it comes to actual combat, visualize the frozen river diagram in your mind and use it to promote your supernatural ability of frost. Then, combine the subtle changes in your body that you have mastered and you can use the ice sex frost force. Gizershur explained, "Of course, it's still miles away from my ice spirit force." Speaking of this, he smiled and said, "Don't look down on it and think it's easy. It's not easy to master the essence and charm of the visualization diagram without a long time of comprehension. Even if you can enter meditation and see inside yourself, you still can't do it. Take it slow and don't rush. Try to master the frost force in half a year. By then, I can teach you 2 weakened versions of physical invulnerability moves." Without the frost force and without Lin Luoran's meteor force, even if you enter the Dan stage, you still won't be a match for Peng Lian. His shocking thunder force is not to be trifled with. Lu Cheng knew that frost force, shocking thunder force, and meteor force were not as powerful as burning force, so it was normal for them to be hard to practice. But he didn't believe what his master said about it being hard to learn just by visualization. He had vaguely understood the ice mirror martial arts, which required 2 or 3 years to master, by relying on his ability to enter meditation, let alone this one. However, after a while, he had to admit that what his master said was right. His previous visualization didn't involve the essence and charm, so he couldn't understand the difficulty of outlining them. Now that he tried, it was really hard to grasp. It wasn't something that could be learned in a day. After taking another look at the visualization diagram, Lu Cheng more or less understood what the so-called essence and charm were. It was just like the brutal blizzard he was visualizing. For the time being, he only had the appearance and momentum of the brutal blizzard. As for how violent the wind was, how violent the snow was, and how violent it was, there was almost no indication of how violent it was. Suppressing his impatience, he calmed down and continued today's practice. He only squeezed out 20 or 30 minutes to understand the visualization diagram. After the practice, Gizershur took away the visualization diagram and didn't let him take it back, which showed how precious it was. Time flew and the weekend was coming. Outside the Songqing University Martial Arts Club, there was an endless stream of people. Last week's competition had left a very good impression on the spectators. They spread the news by word of mouth and spontaneously promoted it, so the number of people coming to cheer for them had more than doubled. And this was without any official promotion. Songqing University's martial arts atmosphere isn't as bad as the rumors say. A stocky man with arms crossed in front of his chest and quietly watched the entrance of the stadium. He sighed with emotion to his companions beside him. On a cold spring day, he only wore a black t-shirt, his legs stretched tight against his jeans. He had 3 companions, one of whom had a mohawk hairstyle that left a deep impression. He chuckled and replied, "What's the big deal? No matter how good the martial arts atmosphere is, it can't be compared to Yimo's." "You're talking as if you've been to Yimo." Another bald man with a beard mocked. "I'm just giving an example. Anyway, our purpose today is to observe Lu Cheng's battle and get a feel for the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. After the amateur ranking event, it'll be our turn. Whether we can qualify this year will depend on that battle." The man with the mohawk hairstyle laughed and looked more relaxed. A cyan dragon head vaguely appeared on their necks. Chapter 164. The sky was dark and gloomy. A spring rain was brewing, forcing the Songqing University Martial Arts Arena to turn on the lights in advance and illuminate the entire arena. Compared to last week when they spontaneously came, the students who rushed into the stadium this time did not buy trumpets, cheering sticks, and other items. However, many of them had already recalled the experience last year, which set off waves after waves of cheers around them. Each wave was louder than the last. Hearing Songqing University, Mo Zitsong, the captain of Azure Dragon Squad, couldn't help but sigh. When can we have such a home ground, such an atmosphere? He and his 3 companions didn't find a seat, but stood at the back of the highest part of the stands, like 4 pillars and 4 security guards. Deng Hua with the Mohican hairstyle put away his relaxed expression and smiled bitterly. Others brought it themselves. "We can't learn it, unless we can fight in the preliminaries one day." They were a local team in Songqing, unlike Yimo, or Songqing University Martial Arts Club, which had tens of thousands of students as its natural support. They had to compete with many strong teams for supporters. Songqing, as the provincial capital, had 2 clubs that had entered the 3rd level of the district competition, which had harvested most of the corresponding market, leaving very little for the strong teams in the preliminaries. The Azure Dragon Squad was a combination of 3 martial arts schools. They had rented the 2nd hall of the Songqing Martial Arts Stadium as their home ground. The stands that could hold a few thousand spectators usually only had 600 to 700 spectators. This was because many people were used to coming to watch a few fights on the weekends. Therefore, they placed a lot of importance on whether or not they could advance to the next round in a group. That meant that they would be able to get a share of the broadcast, a bigger audience, and a martial arts unique skill reward that was only one step away. After losing to Yimo Fearless Squad, they no longer had a way out. They had to defeat Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Therefore, they took advantage of the fact that their match was on Sunday to come to Songqing University to watch Lu Cheng's fight up close. After all, this was a genius who had reached the professional level in half a year. 2 weeks of recuperation might bring him a lot of changes. This match wasn't a focus match, only a recording. As for when it would be broadcasted after the recording, it would depend on the TV station's arrangement. In the locker room of the home team, Gizershi took a sip of wine and leisurely said to Lu Cheng, Sun Jian, Li Mao, Yan Zhika, and the others, "Finally, Peng Qingguang is really good. If he can get some good martial arts, it won't be a big problem for him to reach Dan's stage in a year. He can be considered as one of the top 10 professional 9th pin fighters in Songqing. However, I always feel that the ranking of the top 10 professional 9th pin is nonsense. It's like when you were in school, there were top 10 in your grade and top 10 in class. It's normal." Ha! Lu Cheng and the others were amused and the atmosphere lightened up. Although they had all been caught by Coach Shi in one fell swoop and placed in the bad students category, who could refute his words given his status as a mighty one with physical invulnerability. Gizershur was very satisfied with the effect of his words. He said proudly, Sun Jian, Li Mao, you two fight one after the other. Apart from Peng Qingguang, Gao Rao, Zhang Ying, Chu Yu and Lu Wei of Mingwei Martial Arts School are not much worse than you. Go all out and don't worry. Lu Qing laughed and raised his hand. Coach Shi, you're giving me a lot of pressure. Yan Jika, who was beside him, had been covering her mouth and laughing. Li Mao also relaxed. Pressure? Gizershur wouldn't say that he was giving pressure on purpose. He laughed and said, I remember that this is your first fight on home ground, right? Lu Qing was stunned and nodded seriously. Yes. Indeed, I almost forgot. This is my first fight on behalf of Songqing University Martial Arts Club in our school. Gizershur nodded slightly and pointed outside. Listen carefully. The locker room fell silent immediately. Lu Qing listened carefully and heard the familiar shouts. He heard the waves of voices that had brought him great shock. He heard the roars that had left a deep impression on him. Songqing University. Songqing University. Songqing University. Songqing University. This time, they were crying for him. Did you hear that? Gizershur asked with a smile. Yes. Lu Qing nodded hard. Gizershur chuckled and asked again, do you feel pressured? Yes. Lu Qing didn't hide his slight trembling. His left hand felt Yan Jika's delicate palm. Gizershur's expression suddenly became serious. He said in a low voice, do you want to win? The shouts echoed in Lu Qing's ears. Suddenly, his blood surged in his chest. He shouted loudly, Brother Lu. Yes. In the locker room of the away team, Peng Qingguang sat on a bench and looked at his junior brothers and sisters. He smiled slightly and said, why do you look like you've made a mistake? He was wearing a dark gray martial arts suit and had a crew cut. His facial features were quite ordinary, but he had a calm temperament. He looked unusually capable. Zhang Ying, who had a baby face, bit her lower lip and said, Senior brother, we always feel like we're a burden to you. After our master passed away, you were the one who supported the martial arts club and prevented us from returning to the orphanage. But we not only failed to repay you, but also caused you to fail again and again. For several years, we couldn't advance in the group stage and get the martial arts unique skill reward. Senior brother, if you were willing to join other teams, you would have gotten a good martial arts skill and advanced to the Dan stage long ago. We're so useless. We're only a burden. Gao Rao, who had long arms and legs, said a little self-deprecatingly. Peng Qingguang stretched out his hand and said, you don't have to say any more. I promised our master that I would make the martial arts club flourish and give you all a good future. This is my own choice. It has nothing to do with you. Besides, if I want to make the martial arts club flourish, I definitely can't rely on myself. I need your help. After all, one hero needs 4 helpers, right? Don't worry too much about this preliminaries. Our purpose is to use this opportunity to train ourselves. Of course it's good to win, but it doesn't matter if we lose. With this kind of experience, maybe next year or the year after, some of you will become professional fighters. At that time, if we work together, we won't be afraid that we can't advance. I'm still young. I can wait. Hearing that, Gao Rao put away his guilt and said worriedly, Senior brother, Lu Qing from Songqing University Martial Arts Club should be able to fight today. You have to be careful. Hearing this, Chu Yu, who was next to him, said, Senior brother Gao, Lu Qing is strong, but there's still a big gap between him and senior brother. It's said that his physical fitness has just reached the level of professional 9th pin. But he has mastered the mercurial balance and his physical strength is abnormal. Lu Wei was also a little worried. Peng Qingguang stopped the quarrel between his junior brothers and sisters and nodded with a smile. Lu Qing is indeed very strong. He's an enemy that we have to look up to. In front of such a strong opponent, I should be modest and say that I'll be happy if I win, but it's also worth it if I lose. But I can't say it. Speaking of this, he touched his left chest and said, the more I face such a strong opponent, the more it beats, telling me. He stood up suddenly and said with a strong aura, I want to win. After the arrangement, Gizershur let Lu Cheng and the others move freely and wait for the fight. Lu Cheng wanted to close his eyes and rest for a while before warming up. But he saw Yen Jika take out her phone and press the buttons quickly. Buzz. His phone in his pocket rang. He took it out and saw a message from the girl. She said with a pitiful voice, I'm so angry. What's wrong? Lu Cheng said with an emoji touching the head. I'm just kidding. Yen Jika replied with a blushing emoji. I'm just a little disappointed. I thought I would have a chance to fight today. I always feel that with the ability to pull the center of gravity and listening skill, I'm not much worse than senior brother Sun Jian and senior brother Li Mao. Squatting and drawing circles in the corner, am I too proud? Complacent? If it was Kai Xiaoming who said this, Lu Cheng would definitely reply, you're so full of yourself after winning one fight. But facing his girlfriend, he would definitely say something different. You're between the level of amateur second and third pin. You're close to them, but you're still lacking in actual combat experience. Yes. I'll improve my actual combat experience in next week's amateur ranking event. Yen Jika replied with an emoji with bright eyes. It was the first amateur ranking event of the year again. Lu Cheng unconsciously smiled again. Which pin are you going to register for? Amateur second pin. One must have a goal. Yen Jika sent an emoji with a red scarf wrapped around her head. Hey, I think I said something like that before, but at that time my goal was amateur fifth pin, yeah. Lu Cheng also recalled the past. I thought it was too bold to register for amateur seventh pin at that time. But now. Yen Jika sent an emoji with tears streaming down her face. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, she sent another message. Close your eyes and rest. Don't look at your phone. If you don't perform well, don't think about doing that this week. It was you who sent the message first. Lu Cheng criticized in his mind and replied with a frightened emoji. Yes, Coach Yen. Seeing her boyfriend put down his phone and obediently closed his eyes to rest, Yen Jika felt sweet in her heart. She was about to do the same, but suddenly found the door of the locker room opened and Lin K walked in. Cousin is so late today. She was surprised to see Lin K expressionlessly gesturing to her to look at her phone. Look at my phone? When Yen Jika's eyes moved downwards, she felt the vibration of her phone and saw the message from Lin Quebec. Last week at Tiantong Taoist Temple, not only Xia Tianke saw you and Lu Cheng, but also Uncle Xia. He mentioned it when he visited Grandpa this week. Your mother just called me and asked me if this was true. This. Yen Jika's body suddenly trembled and she felt as if her heart had stopped beating. Chapter 165. Just when Yen Jika suspected that all the sounds around her had disappeared, her phone vibrated again and a new message popped up. I told her that you were annoyed by Xia Tiang's pestering, so you grabbed a male classmate who came to visit me as a shield. You rehearse your lines yourself. Phew. Yen Jika heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed. She could hear the rapid beating of her heart and feel the blood gushing to her face. Brother. Can't you finish it in one breath? You scared me to death. She vented her emotions with words. Lin K quickly replied, I felt the same when I received your mother's call. So you want me to experience it too? Yen Jika didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She only felt that her cousin's dry humor was not something normal people could bear. She used 6 ellipses to express her feelings. Lin K said to himself, if your mother takes this matter seriously, she may fly directly to see you. You have to pay attention to the same words as the people around you. Also, don't get close to Lu Cheng in places that are easily discovered. It's really possible. Yen Jika thought of her mother's character and style and almost gasped. Brother, you seem to be very experienced. You can even think of this. Lin K only replied to her with 3 words, I'm smart. Yenjika's mouth twitched and quickly typed, but I'm not stupid either. Every time I score in the IQ test, I score higher than you. Love makes people stupid. Lin K said concisely and then put the phone in his pocket. Yenjika calmed down and thought of countermeasures in her mind. She was a little scared, a little relieved and a little depressed. After a while, Lu Qing recovered and opened his eyes. He got up and practiced the routine. He moved his muscles and fascia little by little so that they were gradually in the best condition. Looking at her boyfriend's relaxed movements, Yenjika suddenly felt a little melancholy. Should I tell this to Qing? The most important thing for 2 people to be together is to be honest and communicate. It doesn't seem good to hide it from him, but if I tell him, he will definitely blame himself and think that I didn't do well enough. I suggested to go to Tiantong Taoist Temple for a date. And this will aggravate the feeling of an underground relationship. He will probably feel uncomfortable in his heart. While Lu Qing was hesitating and struggling, he finished his warm-up. He turned around and asked in a low voice, Ku, what are you thinking about? Yenjika suppressed all her emotions and said with a faint smile, thinking of your bad things. What bad things have I done? I'm such an honest kid. Lu Qing smiled and sat beside the girl. Does becoming more and more thick-skinned count? Yenjika chuckled. After talking to Qing, my mood seemed to improve. Moreover, I had never lied to my parents before, but the first thing I thought about was lying. Am I falling deeper and deeper? Lu Qing and Yenjika chatted for a while before they realized that Lin K had arrived. When they nodded to greet him, he suddenly felt that his brother-in-law seemed a little different from before. In the past, Lin K was silent, reserved, and cold. But now, he had a sense of quiet. Quiet, calm, and tranquil. Had he touched the edge of the dance stage? Lu Qing guessed thoughtfully. He was happy for his brother-in-law and wanted to work harder. He couldn't let him widen the gap between them. As a martial artist, how could he not have the heart to compete for supremacy? While he was thinking, Gizershur stood up and clapped his hands. Okay, let's go. Let's go and wait for our opponent. Lu Qing, Yenjika, Sun Jian, and the others looked at each other and put their hands together. Then they shouted in unison, victory. When they stepped out of the locker room, a deafening shout suddenly erupted in their ears. Songqing University. The superimposition of 2,000 to 3,000 voices in the stadium created a storm that reverberated in the stadium. Lu Cheng's body trembled with excitement. Then, he heard a new shout. Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng. They all know my name? Lu Cheng and Yenjika looked at each other and couldn't help but feel excited. Then a new wave of shouts came, come on, Lu Cheng. The students who crowded into the martial arts stadium to watch the fight, as long as they were not the kind who were invited by others, would more or less check the relevant information in advance. From the results of several rounds of preliminaries, they unexpectedly found that the martial arts club had one more main force, one more pillar, and one more brilliant unranked master. At this time, they couldn't help but shout. This year, the martial arts club had a chance. Whether it was the preliminaries or the university martial arts competition in the second half of the year. Lu Cheng's scalp tingled when he heard the shouts. He felt so good that he couldn't wait to rush to the arena and fight 300 rounds with Peng Qingguang. A gentleman would die for his bosom friend. He waved his hand reservedly and got more shouts and warm welcome in return. Feeling a little tipsy, he, Yenjika, and the others sat in the seats of the home team and heard Gizershur say, the order of the Mingwei Martial Arts Club is still the same. Gao Rao is the first, Zhang Ying is the second, and Peng Qingguang is the third. Gao Rao was an amateur first pin fighter, and Zhang Ying was an amateur second pin fighter. Their boxing skills were not bad, but because Juyang boxing was very ordinary, they didn't have any trump cards or short burst abilities. Overall, they could be called mediocre. Seeing the referee waving to them, Sun Jian stood up and smiled to Lu Qing and the others. Today, we don't have to worry about not being able to fight all the time. After he finished speaking, he raised his fist and gave himself a pep talk before walking towards the ring. At this time, because of the list on the big screen, new words echoed in the martial arts stadium. Sun Jian. Come on. Sun Jian's blood was boiling and he seemed to be secreting adrenaline. Instinctively, he wanted to recall the feeling of challenging the great demon king in the previous competition and find his best condition. However, some things would only erupt under certain circumstances. Now that he wanted to try again, time had passed, and it would be difficult to recreate it again. However, he was more barbaric and unreasonable than before. His pace was getting faster and faster, and he had already climbed the stone steps. On the other side, Gao Rao left his seat and walked to the arena along the path of brilliance. When he was about to reach the stone steps, he couldn't help but look back at his senior brother who was sitting calmly. This time, I won't be a burden anymore. He secretly clenched his fist and gritted his teeth. In the first 3 rounds, he lost all 3. Even when he fought against the Dream Squad, he lost to Feng Xiaoquan. He was full of self-blame and didn't want to be a burden to his senior brother again. He wanted to have an outbreak. On the arena, Sun Jian and Gao Rao stood opposite each other. The referee said with a serious face, 4th round of preliminaries, Songqing University Martial Arts Club vs Mingwei Martial Arts Club. First round, Sun Jian vs Gao Rao. 3 minutes of conversation time starts. Gao Rao closed his eyes and adjusted his mood and body. He planned to turn a deaf ear to the enemy's words. Sun Jian belonged to the gentle type, and his family education was very strict. He was probably the last few in the martial arts club when it came to swearing. At this time, when he saw that his opponent didn't want to talk to him, he was happy to save his mind and energy. He seized the last moment to repeatedly think about how to attack. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Time passed quickly. The referee raised his right hand and waved it down. Start. As soon as he heard the referee, Sun Jian, who was already prepared, bulged his thigh muscles and jumped down. He used the force to pounce forward like a nimble leopard pouncing on its prey. As soon as he got close, he shook his shoulder and sent out his right arm. He opened his 5 fingers and grabbed Gao Rao like a bird of prey. Flower-splitting willow hand. Gao Rao was cautious and didn't give his opponent a chance to grab him. He leaned back on his left side, clenched his right hand into a fist, and punched out horizontally to block the attack. But just as he was about to touch the flower-splitting willow hand, Sun Jian's left fist seemed to have been ready for a long time. His muscles bulged and shot out like a bolt of lightning, leaping toward his abdomen like a viper. The right hand grabbing was a feint, while the left fist was a real punch. This was the attack that Sun Jian had been planning for several days. Gao Rao's posture was awkward. He could only swing his left arm back and punch down to block in a hurry. Bang! He didn't use enough strength to block and was bounced back by Sun Jian's fist. If he hadn't shrunk his abdomen in time, he would have been in a more embarrassing situation. Sun Jian took advantage of this rebounding force, twitched his thigh and kicked out his right foot, launching the brutal blizzard of the 24 blizzard strikes. Seeing this scene, Peng Qingguang sighed and said, "Little Rao's burden is too heavy. He wants to win too much and is afraid of losing." Facing the enemy's attack, he was too conservative and ended up in a passive position. Zhang Ying, Chu Yu, and Lu Wei were stunned. They understood that eldest senior brother was not only talking about Gao Rao, but also reminding them. Chapter 166. Gao Rao blocked one blow after another in the arena. He felt that the more he blocked, the harder it was for him, while the more he fought, the fiercer his opponent became. It wasn't that he hadn't watched the competition videos of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. It wasn't that he didn't know how terrifying his opponent's 24 blizzard strikes was. It wasn't that he didn't prepare for it and didn't consider how to prevent his opponent from using his strength. It was just that he was in a hurry to defend himself. He didn't have the ability to use short bursts of strength. But now, Sun Jian had already started to gain momentum. Each punch was heavier than the previous one, and each kick was fiercer than the previous one. Gao Rao was on the verge of collapsing, and his strength was at a disadvantage. He could only focus on defense, and there was no chance for him to use short bursts of strength. If the Nine-Yang Fist was a better martial art and had a burst of power similar to the modern cannon fist or an unreasonable move like the bear form, Gao Rao would have been able to use it to meet force with force and forcefully interrupt his opponent's violent blizzard suppression. Unfortunately, the biggest characteristic of the Nine-Yang Fist was that it did not have any special characteristics. It had all kinds of hammering techniques, single whips, cannon fists, and leg techniques, but lacked the finishing touch. Can I only endure until his stamina can't keep up? But I'm afraid I can't hold on much longer. Facing Sun Jian's undersea blast and half-step crushing punch, Gao Rao was a little anxious. He couldn't wait to get out of the current situation. If he lost again, how could he face his eldest senior brother? To see his eldest senior brother who refused to join other forces in order to protect the name of the martial arts club, to see his eldest senior brother who didn't want to become a disciple of a dance stage master, to see his eldest senior brother who protected him and others and never complained. I want to help him even in my dreams. I can't be a burden anymore. Gao Rao felt a strong desire to fight burning in his heart and the urge to break out of the current situation. He couldn't hold it in anymore. He exerted strength in his back, bulged his thighs, and suddenly leaned his feet. As the force rebounded, he straightened his knees, tightened his thighs, sprung his spine, and rotated his waist and back, stirring all the muscles in his body, turning his right arm into a whistling steel whip. With a snap, he lashed out fiercely and firmly. This was perhaps the most powerful attack he could unleash. Sun Jian didn't show mercy. He sprung his back, and his body swung forward. Mixed with the borrowed strength, he blasted out a mountain blast punch. Bang! With a dull explosion, Gao Rao, whose strength was already at a disadvantage, swayed his body and barely managed to maintain his center of gravity. At this time, he saw Sun Jian take half a step back, as if he was about to stumble and fall. Could it be that he only had an empty frame and his lower body was unstable? Gao Rao was overjoyed. Just as he was about to stabilize his center of gravity and switch from defense to offense, Sun Jian's stomp made him seem like a spring or a stray bullet. After a quick collision with the ground, he suddenly rebounded forward. His speed was so fast that Gao Rao only had time to hurriedly raise his arms. Catapult technique. Sun Jian had just closed in on Gao Rao's body when he opened his right hand. His 5 fingers were like sharp teeth and fierce claws as he ruthlessly grabbed the enemy's arm. Just as Gao Rao was about to shake off his arm, Sun Jian stepped on the ground again and leaped forward. He flashed past Gao Rao's stance and appeared behind him. Then, he turned around and grabbed both of Gao Rao's arms. With a twist, a lift, and a scissor, Sun Jian completed the capture. At the same time, he raised his right foot and kicked the bend of Gao Rao's knee. Gao Rao's attempt to turn the tables was abruptly stopped. He could no longer stand steadily and fell on one knee. Until now, Gao Rao suddenly came to his senses and realized that he had fallen into Sun Jian's trap. The referee beside him raised his right hand and loudly announced the result. First round, Sun Jian wins. Gao Rao's mind buzzed. His heart was full of annoyance and confusion. Lost? I lost again? Did I drag senior brother down again? When Sun Jian let go of his hand, he stood up shakily and walked out of the arena in a daze. Sure enough, this was not a cartoon. You couldn't win just because you had the reason and belief to win. You couldn't defeat a strong enemy just by recalling the past and shouting in your heart. Sun Jian was not interested in the enemy's thoughts or emotions. After the expected trap succeeded, he was overflowing with joy and satisfaction. The taste of victory was indeed wonderful, so was the hot blood of every punch. He turned around and waved his fist at the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club and the audience in the stands. Lu Cheng and the others smiled and applauded. The audience responded with warm cheers. Sun Jian. In the warm atmosphere, Gao Rao walked back to the guest team seat. He almost didn't dare to raise his head and face senior brother, junior brothers, and junior sisters. The front part was too tight, and the back part was too rushed. Peng Qingguang was neither disappointed nor angry. He simply commented, "Go back and think about it carefully. After you digest and absorb the combat experience of this preliminaries, you have a great chance to go further." Hearing eldest senior brother's consolation and encouragement, and feeling how indifferent he was about his failure, Gao Rao felt even more upset. He wished that eldest senior brother could scold him and give him a few slaps. Only then would he feel better, and the guilt and self-blame in his heart would dissipate a little. "Senior brother, I'm not a kid anymore." He really wanted to shout back like this. Peng Qingguang looked at Zhang Ying, who was standing beside him, and whispered, "Take the initiative. Don't let him mess up your rhythm. Don't let him get the chance to close in on you. Also, stay calm and don't rush. He's a smart opponent and is good at setting traps." Zhang Ying nodded and remembered senior brother's words. She turned around and walked to the arena, her eyes fixed on Sun Jian. Well, in conclusion, this is a refined scum. Her hair was tied up and her ponytail was swinging. With her baby face, people would believe that she was still in high school. After standing in front of Sun Jian, she took a deep breath and told herself to calm down. Second round, start. The referee didn't give them time to adjust. Gao Rao was a fighter of amateur first pin. It seemed easy for Sun Jian to defeat him, but in fact, it wasn't easy. If he hadn't made his opponent fall into a passive position at the beginning and used 24 blizzard strikes, the winner would have been uncertain. After going through such a fierce battle, and the fact that 24 blizzard strikes was a particularly exhausting fighting style, one could imagine Sun Jian's condition. He only had one thought at this time, and that was to force his opponent to meet force with force and create an opportunity for Li Mao behind him. Bang! After the start sound, he stepped forward. His right arm shook and turned into a long spear. With the momentum of exploding the air, he stabbed at Zhang Ying. Zhang Ying had been prepared. Her right foot slipped and dodged to the side, trying to fight steadily. As soon as she came to the side of her opponent, she tightened her thigh muscles and drove her knee to pull out a whip kick that tore the wind. Sun Jian took a deep breath, twisted his waist and back, tightened his trousers, and fiercely kicked out his left leg from the side. Bang! After the two collided, Zhang Ying took advantage of the rebound force and tiptoed to change her position again. She started to attack again and controlled the rhythm of the game. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. The two kept fighting and separating. Zhang Ying didn't give Sun Jian a chance to use 24 blizzard strikes in close combat. She grasped the trick of moving away as soon as she touched him. After a series of collisions, she found another opportunity. She blocked and pulled with her left hand and punched with her right fist. Bang! Sun Jian's right hand turned into a hammer and went straight down to block this punch. His body was shaking. Was he at his limit? Was his strength reduced to this extent? Zhang Ying was shocked and was about to take advantage of the situation to attack fiercely. However, the words of eldest senior brother suddenly echoed in her mind. Calm down, don't rush. Zhang Ying calmed down, twisted her waist and back slightly, and stepped to the side of Sun Jian again. Then she saw that he took advantage of the rebound force and rushed forward fiercely, bursting out the power that was comparable to his heyday. Phew, he is really treacherous. I was almost fooled. Zhang Ying was angry. She caught up with him in a few steps, raised her right hand, lowered her waist, and was about to take the opportunity to cut down with her fist. At this time, Sun Jian exerted strength on his feet and jumped out of the ring. Jumped out of the ring, jumped out of the ring. Zhang Ying stared blankly at Sun Jian below the stage. She wondered if he had become muddle-headed. After Sun Jian stood firmly, he quickly tidied his hair and praised himself for being smart. When the last burst of power didn't hit the enemy, he was at his limit. As long as the opponent hit him one or two more times, he would definitely be defeated. Since he was going to be defeated anyway, why would he stupidly let the opponent hit him, or fall to the ground and make himself look so embarrassed? In front of so many people, he had to keep his composure. Sun Jian brushed his hair and walked back to his seat with light footsteps. Seeing this, Li Mao stood up suddenly and left his seat. Because his face was not as bad as before, and his body was not as tense as before, Lu Qing and the others didn't say anything to avoid the opposite effect. Slowly, she will definitely lose. When he was about to meet Li Mao, Sun Jian clenched his fist and said with a smile. This time, Li Mao felt a little nervous, but he didn't lose the ability to think. He nodded and reached out his right fist to bump with Sun Jian's. As he walked up the stone steps, he gently exhaled and adjusted his slightly tense body. Just like what Cheng and the others said, when he removed the burden, his nervousness would gradually decrease with the number of fights. It was not a terminal illness that couldn't be overcome. My body is still a little stiff. If I respond passively later, it will be easy to cause problems. So, it's better to take the initiative and take the initiative. After I get through the difficulties at the beginning, I can really enter the competition state, Li Mao silently said, take the initiative, and came to the opposite of Zhang Ying. Compared to before, he was quite satisfied with his current state. At least his mind was not close to blank. Zhang Ying seized the time to adjust her breath and recover her strength. She had just calmed down and played a guerrilla fight, which prolonged the competition time and consumed a lot of energy. However, after winning the first round, the burden in her heart was reduced a lot, and she could calmly analyze the situation of her opponent. This martial artist called Li Mao was very nervous. Although his symptoms were definitely not as serious after his victory over Feng Xiaoquan last week, I still had a chance to take advantage of it. I will take the initiative to attack and take advantage of his confusion at the beginning. The third round, start. The referee waved his arm. As soon as he finished his words, Li Mao gathered his strength and instinctively stepped forward. Zhang Ying's knee bounced and fiercely jumped forward. The two figures were very close in an instant, which made the audience exclaim. At this distance, with this kind of inertia, it was already too late for anyone to dodge or retreat. Their pupils contracted at the same time. In an instant, relying on the instinct of a fighter, they clenched their teeth, twisted their backs, and punched at the same time. When two rivals meet on a narrow road, the brave wins. Chapter 167. Both Li Mao and Zhang Ying summoned their courage without any hesitation. They both stomped on the ground, twisted their waist and swung their arms, and threw out the same blast punch. Bang! When the two fists collided, it was as if they were frozen in midair. Immediately after, Li Mao's body swayed backward, while Zhang Ying took half a step back. Only then did she manage to stabilize her body. Both of them were of amateur second pin. As a woman, she was at a disadvantage in terms of strength after a fierce fight. Li Mao's mind was still a little tight, so he didn't have time to think. Following his fighting instinct, he swayed his waist, bulged his legs, and kicked out his left leg like a soft whip. Bam! His left leg straightened quickly, exploding the air. Zhang Ying didn't have time to dodge. She gritted her teeth, tightened her feet, and kicked back. Bang! The two legs hit each other, swayed, and took a step back. Li Mao's mind was full of the idea of attacking first. Without any adjustment, he pounced forward again, bulged his muscles, swung his right arm, and hammered like a war drum. Again. Zhang Ying's eyes narrowed, and she regretted her previous decision. But now she had no better choice but to fight hard. She stomped on the ground with her right foot, pulled back her arm, clenched her fist, and shook the wind like a cannonball. Bang! Another muffled sound. Zhang Ying couldn't withstand her opponent's strength. Her right arm was swung away, and her upper body fell back, losing her center of gravity. Li Mao, on the other hand, only swayed and was about to attack again. In a flash, Zhang Ying suddenly thought of the competition video she studied a few days ago, and a picture flashed in her mind. She could try this. Anyway, it couldn't be worse. She clenched her teeth and gave up trying to stabilize her center of gravity and force in a hurry. She leaned forward and bent her waist, but her right leg suddenly bounced up, turned into a straight whip, and unexpectedly whipped Li Mao. Iron Bridge, Dragon Turning Over. This was a move Zhang Ying learned from watching Lu Cheng's fighting video. Before reaching the high-ranked dance stage, there wouldn't be any complicated feints or changes in the moves. This was because the speed and control ability of low-ranked martial artists couldn't accomplish these at all. It would only make the moves look fancy and impractical, and it would only be for show. Therefore, the core of the martial arts in these few stages was visualization, force exertion techniques, and routines to train different muscles. It was something that couldn't be learned from watching videos or watching fights. Of course, some moves and techniques couldn't be hidden from others. After watching a few replays, one would be able to figure it out. For example, the trick to take a step back when colliding with the opponent and Lu Cheng's Iron Bridge Dragon Flip. In terms of movement, this move was simple and clear. The difficult part was whether one had the ability to control their own center of gravity. Being able to understand it did not mean that one could learn it. Of course, Zhang Ying wasn't as good as Lu Cheng in this aspect, but she didn't expect to be able to stabilize her center of gravity and borrow the force to rise again. She was purely relying on the advantage of a girl's flexibility to seek chaos in defeat and obstruct the enemy. Li Mao did not expect that the enemy would respond in this way. His left hand lashed out like a whip, taking advantage of the situation to launch an attack. However, he saw the black martial arts shoes coming straight at his chin. The air was torn apart, and the wind was whistling. Li Mao couldn't take back his stance and his right fist couldn't catch up to block. Li Mao's heart tightened. He didn't have time to think. He shrunk his head, curled his body, and lay down to the side. Lazy donkey roll. Zhang Ying's kick missed and she lost her balance. She fell to the ground and rolled twice. At the same time, both of them jumped up like a carp and stood up again. Only then did the students recover from their initial exclamations. They applauded and cheered for the courage and determination displayed by the two in the previous collision. After this, Li Mao was frightened and scared. His nervousness completely disappeared and he entered the competition state. He calmed down and faced Zhang Ying's attack calmly. Zhang Ying also didn't have the intention to attack first. She used her footwork and walked around the opponent to take the initiative to attack and let the competition return to the rhythm she was familiar with. Just as she came to the side, she clenched her fist and chopped with great momentum. Li Mao didn't want to win, but he didn't want to make any mistakes. He raised his right arm to block first and then swung it out to avoid the next move. Going to the back, Zhang Ying twitched her thigh and kicked the enemy's knee with the tip of her foot. Li Mao twisted his waist and turned around, sweeping his leg. Similar scenes kept happening. The sound of the collision and the crisp sound of the air exploding echoed from time to time. One of them attacked beautifully, the other defended stably. It was difficult to determine the winner in a short time. During this process, Li Mao didn't only know how to defend. He himself was not a heavy and inflexible style. Once he seized the opportunity, he would take a few steps forward and counterattack to relieve the pressure of the passive defense. As time passed, he suddenly heard Zhang Ying's breathing become heavier and her flexible footwork seemed to be a little slower. Did her physical strength drop to the level of qualitative change? Li Mao's heart moved, but he didn't immediately counterattack because he was too anxious in the last round. As soon as he noticed that Feng Xiaoquan was close to his limit, he attacked fiercely. As a result, he was almost defeated by the opponent's tiger and crane attack. The lesson was not far away. Li Mao calmed down and slowly changed the situation of attack and defense. After forcing Zhang Ying back with one move, he took a step forward, swung his right arm, and waved it down like holding a steel whip. Crack! Zhang Ying's footwork was not messed up. Her right arm crossed in front of her chest and hammered in the opposite direction to block the whip. However, when the two of them collided, Li Mao could clearly feel her weakness. Hence, he did not show her any mercy. He swung his arms, making them look like two steel whips. As his body leaned forward, he alternated between swinging them down crazily. The slapping sounds were endless. Zhang Ying gritted her teeth, held her breath, and blocked a few times. Finally, she couldn't resist and was pulled away from her stance. She was about to be hit in the body. At this time, the referee next to him stretched out his hand and put it on Li Mao's shoulder. With a shake and a press, he dispersed his strength. The third round, Li Mao wins. With the referee's announcement, the audience in the stands responded with warm applause. They cheered for Li Mao, and also showed respect to a girl who could fight to this extent. At the same time, some students whispered to each other, discussing whether Li Mao's last few moves were the legendary tortoise fist. But Li Mao didn't care about this. Even if his posture was ugly, it was good enough to win the game. This is the second victory I've won on behalf of Songqing University Martial Arts Club. He gasped and thought in ecstasy. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind. Martial arts is so interesting. Zhang Ying heaved a sigh of relief and looked a little disappointed. She still wanted to defeat Li Mao so that her senior brother could face Lu Cheng in his most complete state. As for exhausting Lu Cheng, she had already given up the idea after witnessing Lu Cheng's abnormal stamina in 3 consecutive battles. Forget it. With senior brother's strength, defeating Li Mao is just a piece of cake. It won't affect his duel with Lu Cheng. With a change of mind, she walked down the ring in a good mood and went to meet her eldest senior brother. You fought very well. Peng Qingguang was not stingy with his praise. Hearing this, Zhang Ying was first overjoyed, then inexplicably touched. Her eyes reddened, and she almost shed tears. The words she had prepared turned into 3 words in a low voice. Eldest senior brother, I'm so happy to be able to help you. Peng Qingguang smiled and said confidently without showing off, go back. Leave the rest to me. After giving each other a high five, he walked along the road, stepped on the stone steps, and stepped into the arena. Looking at the famous 9th pin master, Li Mao suddenly felt a little nervous, not because of nervousness, but because it was the first time he faced a professional fighter. Don't panic. I just want to exhaust him a few moves. What's there to be afraid of? Li Mao calmed down and stared at Peng Qingguang in his posture. This 9th pin master is much more mature than his actual age. The audience cheered for Li Mao again. At the same time, they didn't expect Li Mao to be invincible after a fierce battle. They only thought that with the gap of 2 pins, he should be able to exhaust some of Lu Cheng's strength and create an advantage for Lu Cheng. Li Mao. Li Mao. As the shouts echoed, the referee waved his right hand. The 4th round, start. Li Mao didn't dare to fight with a professional 9th pin master. He moved forward with the snake steps and slid to the side of Peng Qingguang. He clenched his fist and hit his opponent with chopping force. Peng Qingguang stood steadily and didn't rush to attack. At this time, his right foot suddenly stepped toward Li Mao from the side. He raised his right arm and blocked Li Mao's chopping force easily. Because of this clever step, his body was in front of his opponent. At this time, all the muscles on Peng Qingguang's back seemed to be connected, shaking like a big snake. He raised his right arm and followed it up with an elbow strike. Bang! Li Mao hurriedly used his left palm to block, but immediately felt a majestic force coming towards him. Peng Qingguang had forcefully slammed his palm into his chest. He felt stuffy and lost his center of gravity, falling backward. Peng Qingguang took advantage of the momentum from the elbow strike and quickly shot out his forearm to grab Li Mao's collar like a gust of wind. Using his skillful strength, he helped Li Mao regain his balance. Then, he elegantly retracted his hand and looked at Li Mao with a smile. If he didn't grab my collar but pinched my throat, I would be dead. Li Mao stood there in a daze. The referee announced the result, the 4th round, Peng Qingguang wins. The shouts and cheers echoing in the martial arts arena stopped abruptly, leaving only a few echoes. The audience didn't expect Li Mao to lose so quickly and so easily. He looked like he couldn't fight back at all. Isn't this professional 9th pin too strong? Lu Cheng suddenly stood up and looked at the ring. His blood was boiling and his fighting spirit was surging. This is the kind of opponent I look forward to. If you only know how to bully the weak, then what's the point of learning martial arts? Peng Qingguang also turned around and looked at Lu Qing. He put on a posture and made an inviting gesture. When the four eyes met, sparks and electric currents seemed to be ignited in the air. The four fighters of the Azure Dragon squad suddenly held their breath as if they felt the turbulent waves between Lu Qing and Peng Qingguang. Lin Ke took a deep breath and showed a rare look of regret. He only regretted that his injury hadn't healed yet. Chapter 168. Defeating a spent Li Mao with one move was not scary. Any professional ninth pin fighter in his prime could do that. What was scary about Peng Qingguang was that he seemed to be able to lift a heavy weight with ease and still had plenty of energy left. This made people feel intimidated. As for the spectators in the stands, most of them were just here to watch the show. They were not professional enough, so they were more shocked by the comparison between the two and the instant kill. Li Mao had just fought with Zhang Ying as if Mars had collided with Earth, and he had fiercely won the battle, but in the blink of an eye, he was defeated by someone in one move. If it were anyone who did not understand the difference between the lower ranks, they would inevitably be shocked and lose their voice, unable to recover for a while. In the rare silence of today's competition, Lu Qing and Yan Zhike looked at each other, high-fived, and walked toward the arena. During this process, he saw Li Mao come back in a daze, as if he was shocked. He heard the scattered cheers around him, which revealed some indescribable depression. In such an environment, Lu Qing vaguely felt that Peng Qingguang had the upper hand. He hadn't shown his real strength yet, hadn't won a victory that was enough to silence the audience. How could he have controlled the situation? In the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Sun Jian and others also smelled the strangeness in the air and felt the atmosphere that shouldn't be there. Yan Zhike, who was wearing a white martial arts suit with black edges, suddenly stood up, put her hands around her mouth, and shouted softly but loudly, "Come on, Lu Qing." The voice broke the silence. Yan Zhike suddenly sobered up and sat down in a graceful posture. She ignored the gazes of the onlookers and acted as if she had done nothing. "Come on, Lu Qing." The familiar voice engraved in his mind warmed Lu Qing's heart. He looked back with a smile, only to see Yan Zhike sitting in the same seat, looking at him innocently with her big black and white eyes. She smiled and clenched her fist, waving it delicately, as if to say, "I'm quiet, I'm well behaved. That crazy woman just now is not me." While Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh, the spectators on both sides of the stands were awakened. Shouts of, "Come on, Lu Qing," followed one after another. At first, it was noisy and disorderly, but then it gradually became orderly and finally turned into shouts that echoed around the martial arts arena. "Come on, Lu Qing." At this moment, Lu Qing felt like he was a man with his own background. Surrounded and cheered by the crowd, he walked towards the ring step by step. When he passed by Li Mao, he nodded slightly, clenched his fist, and extended it. "You played very well." Li Mao clenched his fists and bumped them together. "I believe you can win." The two of them brushed past each other. Lu Qing climbed up the stone steps and calmly walked forward under Peng Qingguang's gaze. Amidst the waves of cheers, each louder than the last, he stood in front of the enemy. "This is my territory, and I call the shots." The referee did not give the two commanders a chance to speak. He raised his right hand and said, "The final round begins." As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Qing, who had already adjusted his body condition, swayed his center of gravity, drew an arc in the air and pounced on his opponent without warning. At the same time, Peng Qingguang's thigh muscles swelled and squirmed as if they had a life of their own. With a spring and a shake, he changed from a standstill to a high speed. He rushed towards Lu Qing's original position, as if he wanted to catch his opponent off guard and prevent him from using the skill of mercurial balance. With a dash and a flash, Lu Qing came to Peng Qingguang's side. He bent his body slightly, stepped on the ground, and suddenly launched a seabed cannon straight at his opponent's waist. This was similar to his previous performance when he used mercurial balance to fight strong opponents, but in essence, it was completely different. This was not seabed cannon, but seabed quake. And Lu Cheng had already quietly lowered his center of gravity, intending to use all his strength in this attack. Rumble. His mind was filled with thunderclouds, the dark sound reverberated, and the fascia and muscles of his arms and shoulders were tight. Peng Qingguang had just steadied himself when he was faced with such a blow. He had no time to do a side kick, so he had to explode the strength in his shoulders, waved his right arm, and raised his fist like a hammer. Bang! As soon as the two collided, Lu Cheng's compressed strength exploded, like detonating a cannonball. The first strike of Thunder Roar Zen. Boom! Peng Qingguang's mind suddenly buzzed, and he felt like he had hit a landmine. The violent vibration started from his right fist and quickly spread to his whole body, shaking his skin, muscles, fascia, and bones, rolling his qi and blood, and affecting his internal organs. Tremor punch? Lu Cheng has mastered tremor punch? He felt so uncomfortable that he wanted to vomit, and even his strength seemed to become difficult. But he knew that victory was at hand, so he quickly gathered his spirit, contracted his body slightly, and then immediately opened it, and his feet fiercely touched the ground. Crack! With his feet as the round point, thin crisscrossing cracks appeared on the ground, forming a spider web. And with this rebound, the muscles of Peng Qingguang's calves, thighs, back, abdomen, chest, arms, and shoulders suddenly came to life, turning into ferocious flood dragons, propping up his clothes and exploding them. Following that, he twisted his waist and back, twisting this force into one and sending out a fierce swing force. Lu Cheng had succeeded in his punch and was about to win the game, but suddenly he felt that Peng Qingguang in front of him had turned into an erupting volcano, and his whole body was gushing with terrible strength. Then he was involuntarily thrown out and lost his balance. What a terrifying outburst! Lu Cheng's heart tightened as he quickly adjusted his muscles. When the first step landed, he had basically regained his balance. However, he didn't stop there. Instead, he took 2 more steps, accumulating strength with each step. He was waiting for Peng Qingguang's pursuit so that he could give him a counterattack. After 2 steps, Lu Cheng had turned around and found that Peng Qingguang was still standing there, exhaling a long breath, and didn't take the opportunity to attack. He suddenly realized that Peng Qingguang didn't feel good under his Thunder Roar Zen, and maybe he had just stabilized his qi and blood. He didn't chase, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't. Their eyes met again, and they shouted at the same time, "Good!" They cheered for their own performance, and also for the enemy's strength. In the stands, Kai Zongming, Qiu Zhigao, Zhao Chang and other roommates had already arrived, as Lu Cheng's friends and relatives. They were watching the big screen attentively, and they gasped because of the collision just now. In the previous attack, Lu Cheng's Thunder Roar Zen was aimed directly at the enemy, and its power was not shown at all. It was far less terrifying than Peng Qingguang's throwing of his opponent by stepping on the green bricks, wriggling his muscles, and throwing his opponent, which made them frightened for a moment. "Talker, Cheng's opponent seems to be very strong," Zhang Jingye said with a toothache. Kai Zongming was also worried, but he looked calm on the surface. No matter how strong he is, can he be stronger than an 8th pin in the Dan stage? But last time it was Lin Ke who attacked first. Qiu Zhigao subconsciously retorted. Kai Zongming laughed and said, "But Peng Qingguang is not in the Dan stage. He just stepped on a few green stones, right? Qing can do the same. Besides, it's normal to lose a few challenge tournaments. Who hasn't lost in the Dragon King and Warrior Sage? There are so many modern competitions, who can guarantee that he will only meet an enemy who is only a little stronger than himself?" Zhao Chang didn't know much about martial arts, so when he heard Talker's words, he was relieved. He muttered to himself that it was also possible to race, and then looked at the arena again. Lu Cheng and Peng Qingguang were fighting again. This time, he shook his center of gravity and flashed to the left side of his opponent. He planned to make a feint attack to trick his opponent into attacking first, while he flashed to the back of his opponent in advance and took the opportunity to attack with Thunder Roar Zen. He shook his right arm as if he was going to attack, but his center of gravity swayed and he flashed to the back of Peng Qingguang like a ghost. However, during this process, Peng Qingguang didn't move at all, as if he had seen through his trick. Lu Qing didn't dare to stay. He slid his feet and shifted his center of gravity, flashing to the right side of his opponent again. According to the video of the competition, Peng Qingguang did have a little taste of absolute reaction, and he was better than Lu Qing in this aspect. It seems that I can't find a chance to attack his Thunder War Zen by combining feint attacks and mercurial center of gravity. Lu Qing figured out the key while he was moving. Thinking of this, he suddenly had an idea and did a reverse thinking. Peng Qingguang didn't have a complete, absolute reaction. If he could make it a little bit more realistic, it might have a miraculous effect. Without much time to think, Lu Qing suddenly took a deep breath and let his spirit enter the state of concealment of spirit and qi. He visualized the white peaks and thousands of miles of snow, and got rid of all distracting thoughts, leaving only the part of him that was integrated into it. Boom! Lightning struck, and the snow mountain collapsed. Hundreds of millions of tons of snow turned into a torrent and rushed down. Lu Qing shook his right arm as if he was going to release the power that engulfed everything. At this moment, his mega avalanche was ready in form and spirit. Just as his right arm was shaking, Peng Qingguang's thigh muscles suddenly tightened. His tattered martial arts shoes flew out and gave a quick and fierce side kick. However, before Lu Qing's mega avalanche was released, he had already swayed his center of gravity and flashed to the back of Peng Qingguang. Seizing the opportunity when Peng Qingguang didn't withdraw his side kick, he lowered his waist and took a step forward, compressing the muscles of his arms and shoulders. Then he clasped his hands together and hit from the top right to the bottom left like a huge hammer. This was a blow that could withstand 2 tremor punches. This was the conventional killing move of Thunder War Zen, Mountain Smash Punch. Chapter 169. Lu Qing was like a giant in myths and legends. He swung a sledgehammer and smashed it down from the top. He looked condescending and full of strength. Everyone in the Mingwei martial arts school exclaimed instinctively. Gao Rao, Zhang Ying, and the others in the Mingwei martial arts school stood up directly. They had just witnessed Big Brother throw Lu Qing out with all his strength, which made him lose his center of gravity temporarily. He almost couldn't maintain his balance and had to use the old method of wandering to avoid the attack. However, in less than a minute, the situation took a turn for the worse. Big Brother was deceived by the feint and was caught by the enemy. He was about to face an attack that was hard to defend against. How could this happen? Big Brother was close to absolute reaction and was not afraid of sneak attacks or feints. They couldn't understand what was happening in the arena. They only felt that their dream had turned into a nightmare. They subconsciously clenched their fists and tightened their bodies, looking at the arena with worry and hope. Not only did they not understand, but the 4 professional 9th pin fighters of Azure Dragon Squad were also confused. They couldn't understand the response of the 2 in the arena. Others only knew that Lu Qing relied on mercurial balance to avoid the attack and look for an opportunity. However, they could see that it was actually Peng Qingguang who was worried about a head-on collision. Facing Lu Qing's attack, he didn't dodge first and then counterattacked. He relied on his vision, knowledge and judgment to seize the opportunity and attack the opponent's vital points directly, forcing the opponent to give up the idea of a head-on collision. How could Peng Qingguang be afraid of a head-on collision with Lu Qing? Didn't he just crush the green bricks and throw Lu Qing out of the room? In terms of strength, speed, agility, skills, experience and style, he shouldn't be afraid. Several fighters of Azure Dragon Squad looked at each other and vaguely felt that something was wrong. What was Peng Qingguang, who had beaten them so badly, afraid of? After he flung Lu Qing out, why didn't he take the opportunity to attack and kill him? At this moment, Lu Qing had completely forgotten the changes around him. He couldn't hear the exclamations of the audience and the cheers after they woke up. His eyes and ears were only focused on Peng Qingguang's every move. He clasped his hands together and swung down fiercely with the momentum of, "I swear I won't stop until I break this mountain." If Peng Xinguang used the scorpion swings its tail, then he would use the mountain smash quake to block his kick. After all, the thunder roar zen only required contact, and there was no rule on where the contact had to be. Once the force of the explosion was released, the resulting shockwave would be almost the same as hitting a vital point. If Peng Xinguang gave up his stance and rolled forward to avoid the attack, then he would withdraw his strength in time and catch up with him in large strides. He would seize the opportunity when Peng Xinguang was unable to support himself and could not use his strength to secure the victory. The subsequent changes flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. He swung the sledgehammer even more resolutely. At this moment, Peng Xinguang didn't completely withdraw his right leg from the side kick. Instead, he took the opportunity to shrink his neck and jump to the right. Lu Cheng's mountain smash punch, which was aimed at his right shoulder, turned into an attack on his left shoulder. As soon as his right foot touched the ground, he suddenly lowered his center of gravity and lowered his waist into a sitting position. His body seemed to curl up subtly. His strength and qi and blood seemed to condense at one point in his dantian. Then, that point suddenly burst out and gushed out. As Peng Xinguang's body opened, the force rushed to his shoulder. Peng Xinguang stepped on the ground and his shoulder exploded. All the muscles in his body bulged. He took the initiative to raise his shoulder to meet Lu Cheng's mountain smash. Bam! The moment the two came into contact, Lu Cheng exploded the thunderclouds in his mind and opened up the tightened muscles, creating a violent vibration like the bombardment of cannonballs. At the same time, Peng Xinguang quickly turned his back and shook his shoulders. Bam! Peng Xinguang's two tattered martial arts shoes opened and turned into butterflies fluttering above the cracks on the ground. Lu Cheng was like a kite with a broken string. He was thrown out of the air and fell a few meters away. Peng Xinguang barely blocked the killing move of Thunder Roar Zen, in this desperate situation with only a simple sitting position. But he didn't feel good. His joints, fascias, and muscles were visibly trembling. His qi and blood were rolling crazily. His internal organs were shaking. Every part of his body was buzzing and trembling. He was out of control. Lu Cheng just landed on the ground and took a few steps forward. He was adjusting his muscles and recovering his center of gravity. He was also accumulating strength. Bam! He stepped on a green brick with his right foot and turned around. Like a fierce eagle, he pounced on Peng Xinguang again. He wanted to seize the opportunity when Peng Xinguang hadn't fully recovered from the violent vibration and give him another Thunder Roar Zen. Kill him while he's down. Lu Cheng pounced on Peng Xinguang for a few meters. He tightened the muscles of his right arm and swayed his back. He shook the fascias of his torso and was about to launch a powerful mountain blast punch. The third strike of Thunder Roar Zen. Peng Xinguang's body hadn't fully recovered from the vibration. He didn't dare to block it directly. He stepped on the ground with his bare foot and swept backward. He landed a few meters away steadily. Lu Cheng didn't show any mercy. He stepped forward with his left foot and broke the green brick. With the help of the rebound, he pounced on Peng Xinguang again. His right hand was ready to launch the tremor punch. Peng Xinguang stepped on the ground again and continued to sweep backward. He quickly dodged to a few meters away. His dodging was similar to Lin Kei's when he dodged Wei Xingtian's attack. The difference was that Lin Kei was like a nimble mountain goat, while Lu Cheng was like a flying goose. Lu Cheng didn't feel frustrated at all. His eyes were firm and his mind was calm. He stepped on the ground with his right foot and continued to attack. He didn't give Peng Xinguang any chance to catch his breath. After retreating 3 times in a row, Peng Xinguang stood at the edge of the ring. His feet suddenly stopped, like a dam standing in front of a flood. His body suddenly straightened. When he retreated for the second time, the vibration in his body was almost recovered. He retreated again just to launch a counterattack. Peng Xinguang lowered his center of gravity and condensed his qi and blood into a single point. His right hand first swung back and then turned into a long spear. With the terrifying explosion of strength and the shaking of his snake-like muscles, Peng Xinguang thrust the spear at Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng, who had exhausted his momentum. Lu Cheng didn't dodge at all. He swung his right arm with the courage to meet an enemy in a narrow path. The explosion made a thunderous sound and ignited the tremor zen. Bang! The two collided. Peng Qingguang's qi and blood were rolling over. He felt dizzy and his chest was tight. But his explosion just now offset most of the vibration, so his body didn't tremble violently. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, was forced to take 3 steps back, crushing several green bricks. Only then was he able to neutralize the boundless force and stabilize his body. At this time, Peng Qingguang had counterattacked and got close to him. He took half a step forward and hit him with the crushing punch. For him, after 3 explosions, his body was close to its limit. If he was hit by 2 or 3 more tremor punches, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Moreover, his opponent had prepared a feint attack, so he couldn't judge in advance. He had to rely on his eyes, ears and other senses to help identify. In this way, it would be difficult for him to attack back. He would always try to win the vital points and force his opponent to give up. Therefore, he had to get close to his opponent. He had to fight at close range and not give his opponent a chance to compress his muscles and use the tremor punch. Bang! Lu Cheng stabilized in time and swung his fist down to block Peng Qingguang's crushing punch. But Peng Qingguang leaned on his left foot and slightly leaned his body, followed by an elbow attack. Lu Cheng had to give up the idea of borrowing strength. He exploded the strength of his left shoulder and blocked with his hand. Bang! 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 The two people kept colliding in the small space. Hands, wrists, elbows, shoulders, knees, toes and other parts hit one after another. The result was decided in an instant. The referee at the side was nervous and became more cautious. Because every year, more than 70% of the cases of injuries and deaths due to not being able to stop in time were in this kind of close combat situation. The sound of punches and kicks was endless. In such a close combat, Lu Cheng didn't have a chance to use the tremor zen. Even the strength of his legs became rushed. He was suppressed by Peng Qingguang in terms of strength. But his mind was cold, his judgment was calm, and his moves were firm. Plus, his big and small hand wrap was flexible and fierce, so he didn't panic. He believed that Peng Qingguang would become weaker as the fight went on. In the heat of the battle, both of them moved sideways and collided with each other. Bang! Peng Qingguang's body shook. Lu Cheng seemed to be a little slower and took a step back. Chance! Peng Qingguang knew that he couldn't fight for a long time. Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, he took a step forward and grabbed Lu Cheng's left arm that was dragging behind. He knew that his listening skill was not as good as Lu Cheng's, so he didn't grab Lu Cheng. When he was about to use force to tear Lu Cheng's arm, he suddenly felt that Lu Cheng's muscles tightened and stuck inwards, which made his judgment a little bit wrong. At the same time, Lu Cheng's spine straightened and his back swayed. The right side of his body swung and his fist quickly and violently punched out like a long-awaited cannonball. Bang! Peng Qingguang hurriedly parried and felt that Lu Cheng's strength exploded immediately. Although it was much weaker than before, it was still very scary. His body trembled and his qi and blood were rolling. He saw Lu Cheng's left arm free and pulled back. Then he swung it up and hit him fiercely again. Thunder Roar Zen. Bang, bang, bang. Lu Cheng swung his arms and attacked continuously. Peng Qingguang's internal organs were very uncomfortable and his brain was buzzing. Seeing this, Mo Zitsong, the captain of Azure Dragon Squad, suddenly realized something and blurted out, "Tremor Punch." Lu Cheng has mastered Tremor Punch. No wonder Peng Qingguang wanted to avoid a head-on fight. No wonder he didn't seize the opportunity to attack before. Tremor Punch? Deng Hua and the other two fighters whispered in surprise. At this moment, Lu Cheng swung his right arm again and tightened his muscles. In the thunder reverberating in his brain, he unreasonably hammered down. Thunder Roar Zen hit again. Bang! Peng Qingguang barely parried. His body swayed and his eyes were full of dizziness. He was like a person who was born with impaired hearing and went on a roller coaster ride. Lu Qing shook his left arm like a spear and stopped at Peng Qingguang's throat. Peng Qingguang couldn't even raise his hands. The referee heaved a sigh of relief and announced loudly, "The final round, Lu Qing wins." Lu Qing also heaved a sigh of relief and smiled sincerely, "You're very good. I almost lost. If Peng Qingguang had better martial arts, not to mention the Thunder Roar Zen and the Meteor Force, even the Mega Avalanche would be able to defeat him." Peng Qingguang's brain was buzzing and his body was very uncomfortable. He only saw Lu Cheng's mouth open and close but couldn't hear clearly. It was rare that he didn't show his maturity and answered blankly, "What?" Chapter 170. What? In the face of Peng Qingguang's dumbfounded question, Lu Cheng was also a little dumbfounded. When he had just finished the fight, his blood was boiling, so he expressed his feelings and said a few words from the bottom of his heart. It was normal. But as time passed, it would be more king embarrassing if he had to repeat it again. He could only keep a polite smile and said, "You are very good." That was true. Last week, when he fought with Kid Xie's brother in Tiantong Taoist Temple, he relied on the element of surprise, but Peng Qingguang had almost no power to fight back. If he had used Kid Xie's two kung fu skills on Peng Qingguang, he would have lost. Thinking of this, Lu Cheng was about to say something, but his ears suddenly buzzed. He heard a burst of deafening shouts around him, "Lu Cheng! Lu Cheng!" Most of the audience were students. Although they couldn't understand the turbulent undercurrent in the fight between the two, and they couldn't tell how terrible the shock force was, they had eyes after all. They could see the cracks on the ground like a spider web when Peng Qingguang burst out several times. They could see Lu Qing step on the black bricks and understand the thrill of the close combat between the two of them. They could also clearly see the beauty of Lu Qing swinging his arms and hammering again and again. That was the pinnacle of pure physical violence. That was a scene that showed off the beauty of strength. That hammering seemed to have hammered into the hearts of the audience, bit by bit, hammering away their disguises and the walls that they had built up. It allowed them to vent the emotions that they had been suppressing day after day, boiling with the purest of hot-bloodedness. This feeling made many students, who were used to controlling their emotions, feel uncomfortable. After the referee announced the result, they were a little confused, and there was a short pause. But soon they couldn't hold it and shouted that name, "Lu Cheng." The shouts of 2,000 to 3,000 people converged into a storm. If they materialized, it would be enough to blow away the dome of the martial arts arena. However, in such a lively atmosphere, there were 4 people who felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over their heads in the dead of winter. They felt cold from the top of their heads to the soles of their feet, and from the surface of their bodies to their bones. How can we fight like this? Deng Hua, who had a Mohican hairstyle, was quite confident and relaxed when he came to Songqing University. But after Lu Cheng's Thunder Roar Zen, his confidence fell to the bottom. When Mo Zizong shouted the 2 words, "Tremor Punch," he was full of despair. Seeing his mouth open and close, Mo Zizong and the others' faces turned ashen. Against Lu Cheng, a tag team battle was ineffective. However, judging from the match between him and Fearless Squad, his own strength had yet to reach the level where he could sweep away most of the 9th pin fighters. This left an opportunity. As long as any one of the 4 of them fought hard enough, even if they couldn't win against him, they would still be able to let their next comrade win. At that time, although Lin Ke was strong, he didn't have abnormal stamina. The 2 of them could take turns to challenge each other and win. As for the remaining contestant from Songqing University, they didn't care about him at all. However, Lu Qing suddenly mastered Tremor Punch in just 2 weeks. Without any method to restrain him, who would dare to face him head-on? If they didn't face him head-on, how could they fight hard enough? What was more frightening was that even if Lin Ke, a top professional 9th pin fighter, had mastered a martial art similar to Tremor Punch, he could only hit them 3 or 4 times at most, which was not enough to defeat them. If they were cautious and careful, they would still have a chance to face him head-on or avoid him. But Lu Cheng had mastered tremor punch. It was different. He could swing his arms and shake continuously. Most of the professional ninth pin fighters couldn't stand it. If Peng Qingguang couldn't stand it, they, who were weaker than him, certainly couldn't stand it either. How could they fight? Bang, bang, bang. Mo Zizong seemed to hear the sound of tremor punch in his heart. He saw himself and the others were beaten down the arena one by Lu Cheng. None of them could withstand more than 3 attacks. How could they fight? They looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes, which was completely different from the relaxed attitude they had when they came here. They watched the strong enemy until they lost all their confidence and dared not to fight. When Zhao Cheng, Zhang Jingya, and the others threw away their usual image of good students and shouted and vented, Lu Cheng first met Yan Zhika's eyes in the martial arts club's seating area and silently waved his fist. Then he saw Peng Qingguang shake his head and barely recover. After a salute, he walked down the arena and walked to Gao Rao, Zhang Ying, and the other junior brothers and sisters who were dumbfounded. After Lu Cheng returned the salute, he wanted to ask Peng Qingguang why he didn't ally with other martial arts clubs to pursue the martial arts' unique skill reward of the preliminaries. But he felt that they didn't know each other well, so he suppressed the question. Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng. Echoing in the martial arts stadium, Lu Cheng released the joy in his heart. He didn't think about anything else and enjoyed the sweet taste of victory to his heart's content. He raised his hands and applauded while walking back to the home team's seat. He high-fived Yan Zhika, Lin Kei, Sun Jian, Li Mao, and the others to celebrate. At this time, some students came back to their senses. Looking at the many broken bricks in the arena, they suddenly remembered the video of the jumper and the martial artist who saved the student. He also stepped on the ground and made a similar crack. Comparing the figure, he suddenly realized and shouted, "It's Lu Cheng who saved the student." Him? Yes, it's not Lin Quebec. It must be him. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100. The shouting in the martial arts stadium weakened a lot, but the flashing of mobile phones came one after another. Many students were so excited that their faces turned red. They looked at Lu Cheng with admiration and talked excitedly with their companions around them. The warm atmosphere didn't decrease but increased. In the seats of Mingwei Martial Arts Club, Zhang Ying, Chu Yu, and the others were speechless and fell into an extremely depressed silence. It seemed that they couldn't accept eldest brother's failure even more than him. Peng Qingguang glanced at them and listened to the shouts echoing in the martial arts stadium. He smiled bitterly and said, "What's there to be sad about? What's so unacceptable about losing to such an opponent? It will only spur me to not slack off and make me want to catch up." After that, he turned around and looked at Songqing University Martial Arts Club subconsciously. When that time comes, what level will Lu Cheng be at? After applying the ointment for Lu Cheng in the locker room and being kissed by him several times when no one was around, Yan Zhika returned to the dormitory with her eyebrows and eyes watery. For the time being, she didn't tell Lu Cheng that her mother might come to check on him. She planned to discuss with her boyfriend after thinking about the countermeasures. As soon as she stepped into the dormitory, she saw Zhong Yanru and Shi Xiangyang around Li Liantong. They were looking at her mobile phone and whispering praises from time to time. "It's really amazing. How did he grow his feet? It's so tiring to wear shoes in a martial arts competition." Hearing that, Yan Zhika was happy and blurted out, "Dirty Tong, you finished the video." This was the video she asked her roommate to help her record. Only Lu Cheng's part was included. It was hard to say when a recorded match would be broadcasted. But the match between Lu Cheng and Peng Qingguang was very memorable. She wanted to get the video as soon as possible and save it for her boyfriend. Of course. We all recorded a video for your meal and didn't pay attention to the match. Li Liantong answered proudly. Yan Zhika was so happy that she urged, "Let me see." "Is it blurry?" Li Liantong laughed, "How is it possible? Please call me a video expert." While talking, Yan Zhika moved closer to them and watched the video carefully, recalling what happened yesterday. Last week, because the recording of her first match was delayed until Friday, she almost forgot to save it. Luckily, Ching always remembered this and set the alarm. During class, he ran back to the dormitory with the excuse of diarrhea and finished the recording online. Because they were in the same teaching building and she was sitting by the window, she happened to see Ching sprinting to the dormitory area. So she sent him a message and asked what happened. His answer made her eyes red and her heart warm. That was why she asked Li Liantong and her roommates to help her record the match today. Yenjika watched the video from beginning to end and was very satisfied. While asking Li Liantong to copy the video to the computer, she mentioned that her mom might come to check on her. She put her palms together and said, "When my mom comes, if I'm not in the dormitory, just tell her the truth. Just don't mention Cheng and tell her that I went shopping with Guoqing on the weekend." Zhong Yenru was a little confused. "Ku, will your mom fly here? Just to tell her that she has a boyfriend?" Yenjika put on a serious face and nodded hard. "I think she will. Let me tell you. My mom's biggest feature is that she is very active. She will either not come or come in the next few days. If she wasn't active, she wouldn't have dared to elope. I feel like I'm going to face Empress Dowager soon." Shi Xianyang was a little scared and joked. After telling her roommates, Yenjika took out the freshman handbook from the bookshelf and found the map of the new campus that occupied 2 pages. She sat down, took out a ruler and drew on the map. She looked more beautiful as she concentrated. Li Liantong and her roommates were stunned and didn't understand what she was doing. Looking at the map and measuring the distance, Yenjika's eyes moved up and she whispered to herself, "If my mom suddenly attacks, she probably wants to secretly observe. But she's not familiar with the school's terrain and my class schedule. With her intelligence, she definitely won't wait among tens of thousands of people. She will choose a place where she has a high chance of meeting me and can watch from afar. According to this condition, there are only 3 places she can choose. One is the place near the entrance of the dormitory, where she can directly see everyone coming back from the cafeteria. 2 is the end of the long bridge near the teaching area, where anyone who wants to go back to the dormitory or to the cafeteria can't escape her eyes. 3 is the place where the martial arts stadium comes out. She is of professional 9th pin. According to the data, her observation range is about this large." Yenjika bit her lower lip and carefully outlined 3 dangerous areas on the map. Then she nodded with satisfaction. "Well, as long as Ching doesn't get close to me in these areas, my mom won't find out." She was about to praise herself when she suddenly saw Li Liantong come to her side and said with a strange face, "Ku, can't you just ask Lu Ching to keep a distance from you for a few days? What calculation, what inference, what observation range, what dangerous areas? What kind of brain circuit is this?" Yenjika blinked her eyes innocently and said, with an, Chapter 171. After so many rounds of Thunder War Zen, Lu Cheng was also quite tired. His physical strength was fine, but his mind couldn't bear it anymore. Tightening and compressing specific muscles and controlling them until they exploded when colliding with the enemy was definitely not something that could be done easily. Not to mention that he had to punch and attack during the process. After this battle, Lu Cheng estimated that his current limit was 10 consecutive strikes of Thunder War Zen. He had more than enough strength but not enough heart. Because of this, he didn't try to seduce Yenjika to stay in the locker room and whisper sweet nothings. Instead, he accepted her suggestion to come back early, take a nap, and go to study together in the evening. At this time, Kai Zhongming and others had not come back yet. Lu Cheng was lying in bed, still excited and happy. He couldn't fall asleep quickly, so he picked up his phone and browsed his own fan forum. As soon as he opened it, he saw Eternal Nightfall rolling around and acting cute. "It's a recording again. I'm going to die if I don't see Lu Cheng again." Corresponding to her, Brahman also made a post and said seriously, "I'm going to call Songqing TV station to complain." "Well, shouldn't you call to give suggestions?" Nia Chichi felt a little confused about the little girl's thinking. Brahman said with an angry emoji, "Little Nightfall and I have already called to propose. They didn't listen. I'm going to complain." Eternal Nightfall quickly followed up with a reply, "That's right." They even said in all seriousness, "Sorry, this is the broadcasting arrangement of our television station. Please pay attention to the recording and broadcasting time. Heya, this broadcasting tone is really good. Ha 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 ha, I want to beat them to death." Lu Cheng wanted to laugh. After browsing this post, he opened another one. He saw that Unparalleled Dragon King was taking refuge here. He said with a lingering fear, "Never reason with girls, especially two underage ones. Yeah, the generation gap is as deep as the Mariana Trench." Okamoto's fans shook hands with tears. "But, seriously, how can you be sure that they are girls? Once they take off their pants, they may be thicker and longer than you." Manual funny. In the past few days, they had made a series of efforts to persuade, comfort, and convince Eternal Nightfall and Brahman, but they had all failed miserably. Instead, they had been angrily rebuked by the two girls for dozens of streets. Sigh. Without the live broadcast, the number of fans I've worked so hard to increase has gone down again. Lu Cheng sighed, exited the post and returned to the homepage. At this moment, he noticed a familiar ID appearing at the top of the post, Lu Cheng's girlfriend. Cuckoo. Lu Cheng was surprised and subconsciously looked at the title of the post. Video, Songqing Division Preliminaries, Lu Cheng vs Peng Qingguang. Where did the video come from? Shocked and confused, he clicked on the post and found that Yan Zhika only left a video and 3 words. "You're welcome." Lu Cheng was stunned and chose to play the video. Immediately, he saw himself walking up the ring step by step. Peng Qingguang had already positioned himself and made an inviting gesture. The whole video was shot from a relatively far distance, so it couldn't show the facial expressions and other details. But the cameraman's hands were steady, so the picture was quite clear. Sometimes, the cameraman even aimed at the big screen to make up for the shortcomings of the long-distance camera. The fierce battle was reproduced in a relatively complete way. Shot from the stands. Cuckoo got it so quickly. She must have specially asked Dirty Tong to shoot it. Lu Cheng was surprised and vaguely guessed the truth. He remembered that yesterday he had run nearly 2 kilometers in order to shoot the video of Yan Zhika's first battle in time. While he was wholeheartedly doing something for his lover, she was also wholeheartedly doing something for him. Lu Cheng felt both joy and warmth. His heart was filled with an inexplicable feeling and indescribable satisfaction. He really wanted to run to Yan Zhika and hug her tightly. This feeling was too good. Holding the phone, he smiled and turned over on the bed. Unable to hold back his emotions, he opened the contact list and selected Yan Zhika's phone number. In just a few seconds, a sweet and mechanical voice came into his ears. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is busy right now. Please try again later." Yan Zhika stood on the balcony, looking at the drizzle outside. Spring was in full bloom. "Hello, Mom, why did you suddenly call me?" She held the phone and pretended to be surprised. At the other end of the phone was a clear but mature voice. "You little girl, I'm your mother. Do I need a reason to call you when I miss you?" Yan Zhika chuckled and said, "I was thinking of you, Mom, who are busy every day. Besides, I just called you 2 days ago. No matter how busy I am, it's not as important as my daughter." The mature woman laughed and said, "I heard from your Uncle Xia that you have a boyfriend?" Yan Zhika wanted to say no, but she didn't want to deny the boyfriend thing. Inexplicably, she was afraid that her words would come true, so she said in a spoiled manner, "Don't listen to him. It's all Uncle's fault for bringing Xia Tianke and the others here without even mentioning it. It made me super embarrassed. I couldn't stand it, so I asked my friends from the martial arts club for help." She subconsciously didn't say the words, shield. "Why did your friends from the martial arts club go to Tiantong Taoist Temple with you?" The mature woman pretended to ask casually. Yan Zhika had already prepared a draft in her mind. "To visit my cousin." The mature woman chuckled and said, "Isn't your cousin mildly autistic?" How come there are friends who are willing to travel such a long distance to visit him? Mom, you don't understand. This is the battle friendship between men. Yenjika tried to make herself lively so that her mother wouldn't find anything strange. He cooperated with my cousin and defeated an 8th pin Dan stage fighter by taking turns to fight him. They kind of appreciate each other. He's a strong fighter of professional 9th pin. Huh, your cousin can only make friends on the martial path. The mature woman seemed to be relieved of her doubts and said, your dad and I don't approve of you dating in college, not because it's old-fashioned, but because we think that real love should only appear after you have experienced more, seen more, and broadened your vision. At that time, you can understand what kind of relationship you really want. Besides, have you forgotten your dream? Every time you tell us what you want to do in the future and what you plan to pursue, you are so beautiful that I can't help but be jealous. I always think that I can't let those bastards cheat our little princess away. Yenjika listened quietly with a smile on her face. Her dimples were shallow and contained warmth. She felt her mother's love from these words, so she didn't refute and just promised, Mom, don't worry, I won't date casually. Yes, I won't date casually. I am very serious, and I like to date very much. The phone call didn't go through. Lu Cheng was so tired that he fell into a deep sleep. After an hour, he woke up naturally. He picked up his phone and refreshed it, intending to see the replies in the video post. On the second floor, Eternal Nightfall sent a jumping emoji. You're welcome. I'll just bow, 1 bow. Brahman followed closely. 2 bows. Nyechichi also said, 3 bows. Unparalleled Dragon King wiped his cold sweat and said, only a family return gift is left to play the morning music. After these few posts, they didn't reply for a long time. Obviously, they went to watch the video of the competition. The feeling of a candid shot makes me feel like I'm watching an AV. Said Eternal Nightfall with a funny emoji. To be honest, after only 2 weeks of not watching Lu Cheng's matches, I can't even recognize the person on the stage as him. He's much fiercer than before, much bolder and more powerful than before. After a series of sighs, Brahman laughed with arms akimbo. Little Nightfall, you are getting more and more dirty. But that's not the point. The point is that my idol is more handsome, more handsome, more handsome. Important things must be said 3 times. He is so manly, love-struck emoji. Unparalleled Dragon King expressed his doubts. I don't understand. There are so many strange details in the competition. At this time, Road to the Arena, who had come in at some point, said, if I'm not wrong, Lu Cheng has mastered Tremor Punch. Tremor Punch? No wonder. Unparalleled Dragon King sent an emoji of slapping its thigh. After only 2 weeks of not watching, he has become a living person and mastered Tremor Punch. This is an amazing martial art. Road to the Arena sent a funny emoji. Even if all the professional 9th pin fighters in the country were to be listed, Lu Cheng, who has mastered Tremor Punch, would be among the top. He is only a little bit behind. If I were to fight with him again, I would definitely be beaten to a pulp within 3 punches. So it is Tremor Punch. Although I don't understand it very well, I feel that it is very powerful. Eternal Nightfall replied excitedly. After some discussion, Okamoto's fan said, come on, let's celebrate Lu Cheng's mastery of Tremor Punch. I will continue to drive. Humph. You are not the driver. Unparalleled Dragon King said after cursing. From the video, the ID Lu Cheng's girlfriend is a student of Songqing University. Yes. Lu Cheng's girlfriend appeared and replied with an obedient sitting straight. Seeing this, Lu Cheng felt happy and continued to scroll down. Really? Then what gossip do you know? Does my idol have a girlfriend? Brahman asked curiously. Yes. Yenjika replied with a righteous emoji. Eternal Nightfall was also interested. Who? Do you have a picture? Is it his classmate? It's me. Look at my ID. Yenjika covered her mouth and laughed. I don't even know if you are a boy or a girl. Unparalleled Dragon King wiped his cold sweat again. Yenjika replied immediately. Of course it's a girl. A cute girl. When she said that, the others did not believe her. Only Eternal Nightfall said with a bright and piercing gaze, I will believe whatever you say. As long as you are a good undercover and often tell us about Lu Cheng's situation. No, I have made up my mind. Dad. I'm your long-lost son. After a burst of laughter, Lu Cheng's girlfriend didn't appear. Little Nightfall, he was scared away by your filth. Brahman said with disdain. How am I filthy? Eternal Nightfall felt wronged. Isn't it filthy to call anyone your dad? Brahman laughed. Seeing this, Lu Cheng exited the forum and called Yenjika with a smile. He was a little proud of today's victory, but not arrogant. Even Peng Qingguang, who didn't have any good martial arts skills, could almost defeat him. What about those professional ninth pin fighters with inheritance, talent and strong support? On the way back, the 4 members of the Azure Dragon squad fell into a depressed atmosphere. Depression echoed in the silence. Suddenly, Deng Hua with a Mohican hairstyle said in a low voice, I have an idea. Chapter 172. What is it? Mo Zitsong, the captain of Azure Dragon Squad, looked back at Deng Hua from the passenger seat. Lu Cheng had mastered Tremor Punch, and Lin Ke was about to come back. No matter how he thought about it, he was sure to lose. What else could he do? Deng Hua touched his Mohican hairstyle, exhaled and said, We apply for a special competition format. Stool, are you stupid? We don't know how to make a formation. Zhu Tao, the bald tough guy with whiskers, looked at his companion as if he was an idiot. The special competition format was to apply for 3 people to fight at the same time with the excuse that one's own team was good at formations instead of fighting alone. The opponent could use formations to break through formations, or they could use 6 people to fight against formations. The Azure Dragon Squad was a combination of several dojos. Not to mention whether or not there was such a thing as a formation, even if there was, the 4 different professional martial artists with different backgrounds would have mastered completely different things, so how could there be a formation? Su Zheng, who was in charge of driving, couldn't help but laugh and scold, Stool, don't be so whimsical. Damn it, Songqing University Martial Arts Club must have taken the wrong medicine to participate in the preliminaries. Now we have to wait for next year. When they first formed the team, they were very confident and thought that no matter which group they were assigned to, they would be able to win. Who knew that Songqing University Martial Arts Club would come out halfway, and Pan Xingyun from Hongluo Martial Arts School was also a professional ninth pin fighter. Together with Jiang Guosheng and Fang Tong, they were not to be underestimated. This was a once-in-a-decade death group. Deng Hua had thought through the details and smiled, we don't know how to make a formation, but the substitutes of Songqing University Martial Arts Club are very weak. Hiss, you tell us in detail. Mo Zitsong took a breath and vaguely grasped the key point. Deng Hua said with a smile, we can't resist Lu Cheng's Tremor Punch, and we can't beat Lin Ke who is coming back. But we can barely be considered as strong professional ninth pin fighters. If we know the information in advance, we won't lose so easily, right? We have enough strength to hold them back for a while, right? For example, if you fight Lin Ke, you won't be killed in seconds, right? If you deliberately hold them back, you can at least hold on for 2 or 3 minutes, right? I'm quite confident about this. Mo Zitsong nodded slightly and roughly understood Deng Hua's idea. Deng Hua glanced at the bald Zhu Tao and laughed. Brother Tsong, leave Lin Ke to me, and I'll deal with Lu Cheng. The rest of Songqing University's martial artists are all amateurs. They barely have the strength of first pin. Do you have the confidence to defeat 4 amateur martial artists of second and third pin in a short time? Ants can bite an elephant to death. I can only say that it's half and half, Zhu Tao answered cautiously. Isn't this settled? Deng Hua raised his voice and said, after you deal with those amateur fighters, you can join us to besiege Lin Ke or Lu Cheng. Do you think they can grow 3 heads and 6 arms? If they are impatient in the middle, they might even make mistakes. Stool is right. If we don't do this, we won't even have a 10% chance of winning. We can only hope that Lu Cheng and Lin Ke don't perform well on the spot. But with the special competition system, we have at least a 50% chance of winning. Mo Zitsong agreed happily. Let's apply as soon as possible. It'll be hard to get approved if we're late. Once the special competition system was used, there would be a big mess in the ring. One referee was not enough, even if there was a competition supervisor. They had to make arrangements in advance. So the earlier they applied, the easier it would be to get approved. Of course, the Azure Dragon squad also thought that they had some connections to make the organizing committee believe in the formation. All right. Zhu Tao and Su Jing shouted in unison, recovering their previous emotions and high fighting spirit. Yan Zhika closed the computer cover and was about to wash the clothes in the basin when she suddenly heard her phone vibrating. She picked it up and found that it was Qing calling. Unconsciously, she smiled and walked back to the balcony, closing the glass door that separated the inside from the outside. Sorry, the number you have dialed is busy right now. Please try again later. Yan Zhika's eyes moved and she said clearly. How could Lu Qing not recognize his girlfriend's voice? He was immediately amused and laughed. Which operator will say that the number is busy after a long time? Yan Zhika smiled. I'm just afraid that you're stupid. If I say, sorry, the number you have dialed is busy right now, you might believe me. Her light and lively tone affected Lu Qing, making him feel better. He smiled and said softly, I saw the video you posted on the forum. Yan Zhika's dimples appeared and she felt a little shy. She raised her chin slightly and said, I'm sorry, but I don't know what to say. What are you talking about? I don't understand. The reason why she chose to upload the video to the forum instead of sending it to Lu Cheng was because she was shy. She couldn't possibly tell her boyfriend that she had specially asked Dirty Tong to record a video for him so that he and his fans could see it in advance. That would be too embarrassing. Of course, if Lu Cheng didn't check the forum in the afternoon, she was prepared to send the video to him without explaining anything and then say, come on, praise me. Lu Cheng laughed again when he heard the girl's confused answer. His heart was even warmer. He asked, how much did you pay? Yan Zhika didn't deny it again. She leaned against the window sill in the living room and smiled. A meal. After that, she said proudly, I feel that IDs like Lu Cheng's XXX are going to be popular. A lot of them just now. Pfft, what are they? Lu Cheng asked happily and curiously. If they weren't talking on the phone, he would have sent a doting smile emoji. Yan Zhika pursed her lips and looked at the sky. She raised her voice and said, I'm not telling you. After chatting happily for a while, she thought of something important. She took a breath and said, Cheng, my mom may come over in a few days. Lu Cheng was shocked. Why is your mom coming all of a sudden? Most men were instinctively afraid of mothers-in-law, just like facing Empress Dowager. It's all because of Uncle Xie. Yan Zhika pushed all the responsibility to Xie Qingjin. Xie Tianke wasn't the only one who saw us holding hands that day. His dad also saw us. We didn't notice it and didn't remind him. When he visited my grandpa 2 days ago, he mentioned it casually. Then my mom knew about it. Fortunately, my brother covered for us and said that I asked for help because I was annoyed by Xie Tiang's pestering. After that, she silently opened her mouth and said to herself, it's my cousin who said it, not me. Fortunately, Yan Zhika finished her words in one breath. Lu Cheng was not scared out of his wits. He said with lingering fear, it's all my fault. I didn't want to waste the time with you. Will your mom really come over to patrol? Hearing the first half of her boyfriend's words, Yan Zhika's 2 dimples quietly bloomed. She said in a serious tone, trust me. My mom is a very capable person. I even suspect that she's on her way to the airport." His explanation alone was definitely not enough to make his smart mom completely believe him. Phew. Lu Qing exhaled and said with some disappointment and reluctance, "Then we should keep a good distance these days?" Yenjika gently bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth. She thought for a while and said, "It's not that serious. As long as we pay attention to the 3 sections from the martial arts arena to the teaching area, from the water conference hall to the long bridge, and from the entrance of the pedestrian street to my dormitory, we won't be afraid. My mom can't just wander around the campus like a headless fly, right?" "You're right. There are so many people in the cafeteria during mealtime. There are so many tables in the cafeteria. It's very unlikely that she'll see us." Lu Qing cheered up and happily agreed. "But, how did you determine these 3 sections?" "Deducing." Yenjika suddenly blushed, delicate and beautiful. Just because of this, Dirty Tong laughed at her for having abnormal brain circuits. After a few words on this topic, she asked a little worriedly, "Qing, are you a little unhappy? Do you feel that we have to be sneaky and hide?" Lu Qing said sincerely, "No. In fact, I feel a little guilty. I feel that I'm not good enough for you. If I really want to meet your mom now, I don't have the courage. I'm not confident that I'll leave a bad impression on your mom. If the first impression is bad, it'll be very difficult to turn it around. There will be more resistance when we're together in the future. I've been working hard to improve myself. I hope to be good enough to meet your mom and dad when I'm ready. I want to let them feel that I'm very reliable at first and that they can entrust their daughter to me without worry. Besides, I know that I confessed too early and too suddenly. Until now, you still can't say that you've completely adapted and accepted it. If there's more external pressure, I'm afraid you'll feel that this relationship is too tiring, too troublesome, and too restrictive. So, it's not bad to be sneaky now." Quietly listening to Lu Cheng's somewhat messy and somewhat inarticulate explanation, Yenjika suddenly felt that Lu Cheng valued and slightly clumsy love from the bottom of his heart. Her heart warmed and her eyes turned red. She said in a low voice, "Cheng, actually, I like you very much already." "What?" Lu Cheng asked blankly. Yenjika gently bit her pink lips and said with a faint smile, "Nothing, just a shout. As for the fact that I like you very much, I'll tell you in the future when I have the chance. Mother-in-law is coming." Lu Cheng was a little dazed when he put down the phone. He felt that he should do something, but after careful consideration, he thought that not doing anything was the best response. The more he did, the more likely he would make mistakes and be found out. "Sigh, I can't believe that I'm only 19 years old and I'm already experiencing the majesty of a mother-in-law." He laughed at himself. He was a little puzzled by his classmates who fell in love early in middle school or high school. What kind of feelings did they have when facing their mother-in-law? Or could it be that they never met her? After spending some time to calm down, he casually browsed the forum. Suddenly, he saw that Road to the Arena and Unparalleled Dragon King were discussing his master in the order of himself, Songqing University Martial Arts Club, coach. "Old Dragon, you're the humanoid database I admire the most. Do you know the background of Coach Shi of Songqing University Martial Arts Club?" Road to the Arena asked curiously. "I've asked around and searched, but I couldn't find anything related to him. Logically speaking, with the Ice Sect inheritance, surname, and suspected physical invulnerability, it should be easy to find him." Unparalleled Dragon King sent a bitter smile emoji. "I've searched, but I still can't find anything. Even on the list of preliminaries official website, his name is also Coach Shi. I'm beginning to suspect that his real name is Coach Shi. However, surname Shi and Ice Sect inheritance, I have a feeling that he has something to do with Shi Yuejian of Wuyue Club. Of course, he could also be using a fake surname. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.